your fault.
No, we talk about this all the time. I don't, with reason. I prefer garden hose water that was clearly hot during the day. Now it is
I'd like to call the meeting to order. First, can we please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Brennan.
Here.
Counselor Kame.
Present.
Counselor Petropoulos.
Here.
Counselor Gilat.
Here.
Counselor Lavin.
here.
Counselor Gameau.
Here.
Counselor Grimaldi.
Here.
Counselor Whitfield. Mayor Cicery.
Here. All right, our first order of business tonight is a public hearing regarding the sale of city-owned property at 38 Jackson Street. I'd like to declare this hearing open. Do we have anyone who wishes to comment? I should point out, we actually have a slightly new setup for those of you who are coming in the first time, this redesign, this grand redesign of city council chambers. We move the podium over to just to the left here, at least facing me, or to the right for those of you facing the dais. It allows for an easier view, easier access, removes a tripping hazard amongst other things, but also opens up the chambers a bit. So just making a point of order there. So with regard to the public hearing, any comments with regard to the sale?
Is there the buyer happy tonight of Rochester? Is the buyer non-exempt or is it exempt? What happens after the sales? Whether the property taxes we pay?
Yeah, Cam, this isn't really for questions. If you'd like to get up and pose a series of questions for us to consider, you can certainly do that. It's not for a back and forth, as good as your questions may be.
It goes on
All right, any discussion by, okay, so I hereby declare the public hearing closed. Do we have a motion on the sale?
I make a motion.
No, it's for new business later
It's new
on.
business. We don't do the sale
Yeah,
at this
just move
point.
on to the next agenda item later.
All right.
Okay, thank you. So next we go to council reports. Let's start with Councilor Lavin.
Actually, I'm speechless this evening. We have an IDA meeting on Friday. I think you'll hear tonight, I do want to revisit on behalf of the people of the First Ward, a brief discussion we had at the last meeting about the crossings that we were about to fix, and now I hear through the grapevine we're not going to, based on I don't know what, and I plan on bringing up at the next meeting a formal proposal to have a full vetting of the discussion for South Main Street's crossings.
You'll have my support on that.
Yeah, and so we'll put that in as a formal action at the next meeting. But that's come up frequently since the last meeting, that the people of the South Main Street would like to see those crossings done. The newspaper called and said that they were informed by our DPW that they weren't going to do that based on what I consider to be a very short discussion at the last meeting. I think we can do it more thoroughly than that.
So why don't we bring this up and actually create an agenda item
Yes,
as it
that's
pertains
what I
to
plan
that,
on.
so we can do it precisely and specifically, get the background again, the discussion out of it again, and then come to some sort of conclusion or action should it be warranted.
Actually, you're
Okay.
right, and I've
So we'll do
heard
that.
several people who approached me to come in when we could put it on the agenda to discuss
Okay,
the need for this.
thank you.
I'm still against the Jake breaks too, but I think we're gonna have to push the manager into uncomfortable territory on that. But
Okay, thank you, Councilor Lavin. Councilor Gummo.
I apologize for continuing with the Jake break topic, but it's, I don't know, it's a nuisance. Important updates for me. Planning committee met and approved the subdivision of a parcel back behind the Dollar Tree, heading out of the city for sale. Green committee met, but I was not able to attend that meeting, so we had a conflicting executive session. The maybe positive thing is that when I was campaigning, I had a now constituent complain that they couldn't have a fruit tree in their front yard and believe that this was against an ordinance, had the city manager check this, and you can have a fruit tree in your front yard if you would like.
Just not in right away.
Yeah, just not in right away. Yes, in your own front yard property. Yeah, that's
Thank
it.
you. Thank you, Counselor Gummo. Counselor Grimaldi?
I attended the Geneva Housing Authority meeting, and they seem to be trucking along okay. Most of their construction they've been doing is done, and they are, right now, they had a fire at one of their scattered sites, and they're looking at getting that repaired. So otherwise, they're doing pretty good.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Gelati?
Good evening, everybody. First of all, the Police Budget Review Board is going to meet Monday, and they're still working on our bylaws, trying to finalize them. They're reviewing and upgrading them, whatever. And then they'll present them to council once they get them finished. So that's Monday, and hopefully next council meeting we can present that. Bid news for this meeting. Thank all community members for a successful Winterfest. The winter decorations are down for the year. Bid is gearing up for spring, with several large planting projects happening at the lakefront. Bid announced the first District Choice Awards at their annual dinner. Nonprofit of the Year was Smith Opera House and Blueprint Geneva. Community Partner, Outside District, Hobart and William Smith Colleges. Holiday Decorating Contest winner, Working Class. Milestone Award, Water Street Cafe. Favorite Annual Downtown Event, Live from Linden. Outstanding Storefront Design, Stomping Grounds. Best New Business of 2025, Sweet Case?
Sweet Keys.
That's close. Exceptional Service at Geneva, Steve Valentino. Best Facade Improvement, Fully Loaded 315. That's all I got.
Thanks, Counselor Gelati. Counselor Brennan?
Very quickly, the Historic District Commission did not meet this past month. The Shade Tree Commission did meet, and a couple of things of importance here. One of them is that Kevin Reed here of the staff, he's an engineer for the DPW. He performed the reapplication for our recertification to be an Arbor Day tree city. And we here again Geneva is another tree city in the United States. Thank you, Kevin. The other thing about that is that there will be no Mission Zero, I'm told, this year. You might recall it's at the Recreation Center south of us, but there will still be a Shade Tree Committee tree giveaway on April 25th, starting at 9 o'clock in the same location. If you don't know what that is, that's the north end of the Recreation Center. They're just going to occupy a little spot in the parking lot there. So you're welcome to a free tree from the Shade Tree Committee, and that's important. The other thing is that Tom Burl and his crew contributed $200 in firewood sales to the city for this past month. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about here, Tom Burl of Burl Insurance Agency and a few of his pals, mostly from the Shade Tree Committee, literally collect logs and cut them and split them and sell them, and then give entirely all of that money right back to the city of Geneva. And they were over at the $20,000 mark. So it's a very income-producing committee, but I'm not sure if we have any of those other than the Shade Tree Committee. And that's it, Mayor.
All right, thanks, Counselor Brennan. Counselor Kane?
Thank you. First, I'd like to congratulate Gianni Vasquez on becoming Geneva's second ever New York State High School wrestling champion. The sacrifice and dedication that he's made over the years has not only honored him, but has been brought honor to our city. And after the February council meeting, I had many phone calls and emails. It's been quite the month. In the course of February, I held 14 in-person meetings with constituents. On the 9th, I toured the wastewater treatment plant with Councilors Petropoulos and Gummo, as well as the Assistant City Manager. That evening, I attended a Human Rights Commission Zoom meeting with Dr. Philip Fleming and Stephen Kelly. On February 10th, in the morning, I toured the DPW facilities on Hogarth Avenue, Councilor Petropoulos, City Manager, Mr. Venuti. That afternoon, we joined the Buildings and Grounds facility at Glenwood Cemetery, and then the wastewater treatment plant on Lockland Road with Mayor Sistry, Councilor Petropoulos. And that was led by Mr. Venuti. On the 12th, I attended the executive session. The 16th, met with Mayor Sissery to discuss some issues that my constituents have brought forward. And the 17th, attended a agenda-setting meeting at the city here. And later that evening, attended the city council meeting on major infrastructure. On the 20th, I had the honor of witnessing the swearing-in of Officer Casterlin in the council chambers. And later that evening, I attended a Black History Month program at the Geneva Public Library on the abolitionist history of Geneva. And I tell you what, I'd watch it. It's online. We were really a big player nationwide, and we should be proud of that. February 21st, I held a town hall meeting at the public library with Mayor Sissery and Councilor Petropoulos. March 2nd, I met with the 4th Ward Councilor to discuss issues that our wards have in common. And on the 3rd, I attended the meeting of the Ad Hoc Finance Committee. The Recreation Advisory Board didn't make me aware of their meeting this month. I guess they were getting together, and obviously they've got some names they put forward, but hopefully next month they let me know what it is.
Thanks, Councilor Kame. Councilor Petropoulos?
Yes, Councilor Kame stole a lot of my thunder, but that makes mine shorter. The Local Development Corporation, LDC, met today. I might have mentioned last month that they are facilitating Hobart's William Smith's bonds. The fee is a substantial amount, and as such, they will be forming a strategic investment committee, ad hoc, of course. We had a special guest, Ken Hammond from Ironman. You'll be hearing from him later, so I won't go into what he said to us, because he'll say it to you. And let's see, the next neighbors event is to be determined. And last but not least, for the LDC, we voted our city manager, Amy Hendricks, in as the new executive director of LDC from city staff. As far as what went on in the ward, we had the town hall meeting on the 21st. Our guest was Mayor Sissery, and of course, Councilor Kane was there. I was told the Winterfest was a rather smashing success, given the first year we did it. That was on Linden Street. Hope everybody had a chance to at least come down. If not, next year it's all weather. A lot of kids, a lot of families. It was a good time. I took a ride along with the Geneva Police Department. Any of council is welcome to do that. Just let the chief know. My ride was Police Officer Quintanilla. He and I caught up on what's changed since the last one I did in 2023. Things are good, and we've stabilized that, so we can move on to other things like other things. Councilor Grimaldi, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was mentioned at the LDC meeting that the Knights of Columbus are having the Shamrock 5K on March 14th.
Yes.
So that's in the Ward 5 or close to area.
Yeah.
This Saturday, the Smith Center for the Arts is having a fundraiser. It's technically sold out, but doesn't mean you can't come and donate a few bucks. Let's see. The Local Development Corporation is seeking individuals with finance experience and or planning experience. So if you know anybody or if you yourself do that, you want to come down, I encourage you to do so. And last but not least, I too went to the chat at the library about the abolitionists. I had no idea. I knew Geneva was a stop on the Underground Railway, but I had no idea we were so directly involved with that. It was a very excellent presentation to round out Black History Month. So thanks, and hopefully we'll hear more about the individual in question that we. So thanks. That's it.
All right, thanks, Councilor Petropoulos. Next on the agenda is public comment. Just as a reminder for those participating, and we have a list here, thank you. You are held to 3 minutes unless otherwise noticed. We do have one who's requested 6. Actually, he said it was okay. All right. I'll tell you what, if you don't mind, everyone, I'm going to pull an audible here and make a slight change to the agenda for a very important reason and move to the proclamations portion of the agenda. So we have two this evening. We're going to start first with one regarding the registered dietitian nutritionist, and the second as it relates to some terrific news as it relates to Gianni Velasquez, and his recent achievement. So, barring any objection by council, I'd like to move proclamations up by a few notches to allow the team who's here to go to another high school game. So we want to be respectful so they can go cheer on some fellow folks. Come on in. All right, so the first I'm going to read is a proclamation around registered dietitians. So, whereas registered dietitian nutritionists are the food and nutrition experts who can translate the science of nutrition into practical solutions for healthy living, and whereas registered dietitian nutritionists have degrees in nutrition, dietetics, public health, or related field from well-respected accredited colleges and universities, completed an internship and passed an examination, and whereas registered dietitian nutritionists use their nutrition expertise to help individuals make unique positive lifestyle changes, and whereas registered dietitian nutritionists work throughout the community in hospitals, schools, public health clinics, nursing homes, fitness centers, food management, food industry, universities, research and private practices, and as whereas registered dietitian nutritionists are advocates for advancing the nutritional status of Americans and people around the world. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Jim Cicery, Mayor of Geneva, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, March 11th, 2026, Registered Dietitian Nutritionist Day in Geneva, New York. And I encourage all citizens to recognize the contributions of registered dietitian nutritionists and express appreciation for their commitment to promoting science-based nutrition in the hopes of achieving optimum health for both today and tomorrow. So thank you. We all appreciate that. Some days I think I need one more than others. Okay, so for those who just joined, welcome. Is everyone in? There's some people out
We
there.
got 5 seats up in front.
We got plenty of
Come on
seats.
in.
Come on in.
And don't worry about blocking the street. That's all right. Make yourself comfortable.
All right, so welcome. It's an excellent example of civic pride and appreciation for the hard work of a team and a particular individual and his family and friends. So it's with great pride that this proclamation honors Gianni Velasquez and the Geneva wrestling team. Whereas the city of Geneva proudly recognizes the achievements of student athletes whose dedication and teamwork reflect the spirit of our community, and whereas Gianni Velasquez, a 5-year varsity captain of the Geneva wrestling team, achieved an extraordinary milestone on February 27th, 2026, becoming the New York State wrestling champion in the 215-pound weight class, and whereas Gianni's remarkable career includes 164 victories, a 2026 Section 5 championship, 2026 Section B sectional championship, 2026 league championship, 4 most outstanding wrestler honors, and a 6th place finish at the 2025 New York State Championship. And whereas his achievement reflects not only the personal dedication, but also the strength of the Geneva wrestling program, which captured the 2026 league championship, the program's first in 30 years, and finished ranked 14th in New York State. And whereas the city recognizes the leadership and mentorship of head coach James Lyons, coaches Angel Saldana, Dominic DeFazio, and Bill Hadsell, along with the longtime guidance of Nick Mateo and the commitment of Gianni's family, teammates, and supporters. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Jim Cicery, Mayor of the City of Geneva, together with City Council, do hereby recognize and congratulate Gianni Velasquez, the Geneva wrestling team, their coaches, mentors, and supporters for their dedication and excellence, and thank them for bringing pride and recognition to the City of Geneva, and proclaim April 11th, 2026, which is the date of your banquet, as Gianni Velasquez Day in the City of Geneva, urging all residents to join me in honoring Gianni Velasquez on his achievements as a student athlete, team captain, and New York State wrestling champion.
years ago, wasn't that long.
Just one round, Mayor, just one round.
And I know you all wanted to go to the basketball game, so feel free. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations.
Way to go. Good work. Nicely done.
All right, thank you everyone for your acquiescence to that. So next, we're going to move to public hearing. In this, just as a reminder, with the new location, everyone has 3 minutes to please be precise and honor that 3 minutes. For those of you at the podium, if you look up, you'll see that there's a clock there. You have a nice view of that, so that tells you you have your 3 minutes, and when it comes close to expiring, I'll also wave the gavel so you can see that just as a heads up that you're approaching your time. There was one request for 6 minutes from Alexander, and that's fine. So I'd like to start with Teresa Serino.
Okay. I will be speaking specifically about the downtown business district's sidewalks. The maintenance of these sidewalks is directly connected to the prosperity of our downtown businesses. These public sidewalks see heavy pedestrian traffic, and if a section of this sidewalk is not properly maintained, it can negatively affect several businesses, and in some cases it impacts the entire block. Many of our customers are elderly, and many use canes, walkers, and wheelchairs to get around. Currently, the property owners are responsible for sidewalk repairs and maintenance. However, with so many property owners not living in Geneva, many are unaware of these issues, especially if there are no fines or violations given. Take the situation I have currently been dealing with since last summer. The sidewalk in front of the Dove Block is uneven and causes a tripping hazard when walking south on Exchange Street. We have tended to several individuals who have fallen, a couple of who have went to the emergency room. The owners of the Dove Block building are aware, the city has been made aware, but nothing has been done, leaving the tenants to deal with the hazard while property owners continue to dodge accountability. Who is truly affected by this? The patrons of our downtown businesses and the people working hard every day to provide for our community. We are the ones helping hold pressure on a cut of an elderly woman on blood thinners while her husband calls the ambulance. We are the only ones trying to find a solution to alert people to the hazards. This is unacceptable, and I believe that the city should have the ability to do the work that needs to be done and then bill the property owner if code violations have not been corrected. Maybe then hazards will be addressed in a reasonable timeline. This transitions well into my next downtown business district sidewalk issue, clearing them after snowfall. Not just a winter event, but any snowfall or ice forming that creates a hazard for patrons trying to get to and from businesses. This again is another property owner responsibility that is not being done in a unified or timely manner because it is either passed down to the tenant in the lease or it is simply just ignored. Leaving this responsibility in the hands of 100+ different property owners has proven to be inefficient and dangerous. I believe that it would behoove the city and the BID to form a coordinated and unified plan for our downtown sidewalks, crosswalks, and streets. Because right now, the crosswalks are being maintained beautifully. But much like the bridge to nowhere, the crosswalks are often crosswalks to nowhere, leading to sidewalks that are covered in snow and ice. Even if the streets are plowed and customers are able to park, if they can't get over the mountains of snow that the plows create on top of the easements, and the sidewalks aren't clear, then people just stop coming downtown until the snow melts. And with recent events like Winterfest, I know this current BID and mayor are trying to entice as many people downtown as possible to enjoy our city. Instead of fining property owners or tenants for their lack of snow removal, it would be so much more productive to find a solution to provide a uniformed, reliable snow removal plan for downtown sidewalks. This would also instantly eliminate a major stressor for business owners. Please, for the vitality of downtown and most importantly, the safety of our citizens and visitors, let's find a solution so that next winter, no one decides to just stay home. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. And also for anyone making comments, if you want to leave your comments with the city clerk, she'll make sure they're a part of the official record. She'll also otherwise summarize it, but if you wanted it word for word. Okay. All right. Next is Maeve Riley.
Hi, my name is Maeve and I live in Ward 2. This week I spoke to Chief Eveland over email from the Geneva Police Department about the detainment of 3 Geneva residents on February 20th. Chief Eveland dismissed my concerns about this operation being conducted unlawfully and directed me to the DHS field office. However, I was not asking the GPD to interfere with legal investigations where a judicial warrant is presented and no excessive force is used. I was asking the GPD to address the instances where people feel unsafe because their citizen rights and/or non-citizen rights are being violated. ICE agents driving recklessly, entering homes without a proper warrant, and using excessive force are all crimes that are well within the GPD's purview to investigate or to address in real time. Geneva residents have the right to call 911 when someone, including ICE, is breaking into their home or committing another crime, and the GPD has a moral and legal responsibility to keep those residents safe. Since such a large portion of the city's budget goes to the GPD, they have a responsibility to do a better job of keeping Geneva residents safe. Otherwise, that part of the city's budget is doing a major disservice to its residents and is divesting from other equally important areas. I appreciate City Council's recent decision to add mental health staff to the GPD to respond to mental health crises and to de-escalate situations. This is a step in the right direction, but residents still lack any sort of support for ICE breaking into their homes and causing irreversible harm both to those residents and to the community. Today, I am requesting that City Council develop a strategy to respond to ICE presence in Geneva as well as hold the GPD accountable. This is not a new request. Geneva residents have been demanding more accountability from the police department for many years. Since their refusal to be held accountable continues, there needs to be a stronger push from council. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Charles King.
Hi, Council.
Hello.
It is your job to form a responsible government to serve this city's people. That includes interviewing appointees to powerful boards and making sure that they're trained, supported, and independent. Often in the past 10 years, boards have been mocked, cajoled, lectured, and criticized by individual city councilors. Your opportunity to legally direct powerful boards is before you appoint them, not after you appoint them. If you want to change a specific city policy, all 9 of you should modify the charter or the comprehensive plan, or pass a resolution to protect a parcel, or send a memorandum of intent to change zoning on Jackson Street, for example. But individual city council members should not be attempting to boss around volunteer boards. One former city councilor was fond of saying that boards serve at the pleasure of council, a variation of serve at the pleasure of the president. That's wrong. The state constitution, charter, and the code of ethics show that boards are not cabinet positions or brain trusts. They are quasi-judicial positions that are held to strict ex parte rules by the state of New York. They don't serve at your pleasure. And recent attrition from boards is largely a self-inflicted wound from council bullying volunteers, including the weeders, for goodness sake. The recent First Amendment lawsuit that the city lost is further evidence that boards are not simply your underlings. Ex parte means board members aren't supposed to have outside conversations with parties to a site plan review, special use permit, area variance, etc. And that includes outside policy conversations with you as individuals. Boards are supposed to be fairly lonely positions dedicated to intensive research and specific decisions, having all of their conversations in public, not socially active positions like yours that are dedicated to generalizing and going out and talking to lots of people. Form your boards well without double appointments to adjacent boards if you want them to act well without conflicts of interest. You all campaigned on how well connected you were and how hard you would work for the city. Don't just sit back and say beggars can't be choosers when it comes to volunteers. Get out there, lead, recruit people, and then interview, train, and support them. Council liaisons to boards are supposed to be communicators of information, not bosses. At a recent planning board meeting, one city councilor approached this very table during a break and instructed a planning board member how he should be handling the case under review. Complicating that situation is that the city has been appointing salaried staff members to powerful volunteer positions. Salaried staff don't shrink the government to lower taxes. They're always going to vote to grow the tax base, even unwisely, because their employment relies upon short-term gain. I would argue that they can't be impartial balancing monetary gains against neighborhood hardship, and that you shouldn't have salaried staff on million-dollar decision volunteer boards. You are also above them in the org chart. Their approach is not going to be impartial if their employer's employer is in their face directing their decision-making. And Article 78, appealed against a specific board decision like this, might reveal in front of a judge how corrupt that situation is. Then where is your bond rating going to go? Meddling is not just unethical, it's illegal behavior under public officer law. If you want to influence a board, do that in this meeting using by changing policy, not just one of you being angry and aggressive when you're not only supposed to be observing. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Steve, Salmon?
I'll be brief. For those who don't know, my name's Steve Salmon. I live at 505 South Main Street. And in 2016, my wife and I lived there part-time in an apartment. Later, we purchased and moved permanently in 2021. So for about 10 years, my wife and I have been walking down South Main Street and crossing at the crosswalks into Pulteney Park with our dog. In that time, we've seen drivers that just ignore the crosswalks, don't see them, don't stop. One question I would pose perhaps for a later meeting, it sounds like you're going to have a longer discussion, is there a record of the number of violations or how often drivers are ignoring the crosswalks? Is there any documentation on that from the police? I'll go over just two of the very common experiences in crossing in the crosswalks on South Main. One of them, with other people too, you stand there in full view of traffic and 2, 3, 4 cars pass by at speed and you can't cross. Another common occurrence is one car will stop, say a southbound car, you're halfway out in the road in clear view of the northbound traffic, and again, 2, 3, 4 cars come by and they don't stop. Some of them, even when there aren't cars coming both ways, have raised a hand to me almost apologetically, like, I didn't realize it was a crosswalk, it's too late to realize it for me to stop. And they kind of apologize. Now, some obviously are poor drivers. Some are unobservant, but I think a lot of them are just distracted. They're on their phones. They're unaware of the crosswalks. So for me, I love the idea. I think it's the best solution is to have crosswalk signals. I think it's a simple solution. I think it's a solution that offers immediate benefits. Blinking lights when someone's in the crosswalk captures the attention of drivers. We see that in Canandaigua and Waterloo, especially at dusk, all the more so at dusk and in the evening. So I'm in total favor of that. It sounds like you're going to have a longer discussion. And my understanding is New York State would reimburse Geneva for this. So in my mind, crosswalk signals would alert drivers and would greatly increase the safety for the people crossing on South Main Street, the main thoroughfare for a lot of the traffic, and safety for the pedestrians and the dogs.
Thank you. All right, Alexander. All right, Alexander, I'm granting you 6 minutes, but I'm going to hold you to that 6. Very good, thank you.
I come in peace.
All right, thank you.
I'm here today to talk about some confusion I've experienced over the years and just a few examples. If you see someone threatening you with a weapon, you call 911, the police show up, they respond, they write a report. If you see your neighbor's house on fire or smoke, you call 911, the fire department shows up, they contain it, they write a report. If you see someone poaching deer with a crossbow, you call Fish and Wildlife and they write a report. You see someone abusing your dog, you call the Humane Society, they investigate, you get a report. If you live in a slum house and you pay rent that hasn't been inspected, doesn't have an operating permit, tenant occupied, you're asked to email a code enforcement officer to hope that they show up. If you have a complaint about safety issues in front of your business, you're told to deal with it yourself or write an email to the code enforcement and hope that they show up. This affects, especially with the recent house apartment fire that just happened in Syracuse, as a result of negligent property owners. 2 or 3 people have died. I rented a commercial property as well as a tenant-occupied residential dwelling that was not being monitored by the fire department, had no operating permit, and yet somehow magically the property owner is allowed to collect thousands of dollars of rent from me and rip me off, and everybody just acts like I'm invisible. Well, those days are over. I've been trying to grow my business here since 2015. I've been here since 1987. I just didn't walk into Geneva yesterday. And there's a lot of people here that are renting places that are not up to code, that are being completely neglected. And it's a very easy fix. And I'm not entirely sure why the city cannot develop a very easy algorithm, fillable form with check boxes and drop downs and maybe a 500-word character limit, so that at the end of the year you can see X amount of complaints. These were this one wasn't up to code. Just however you want to structure the data. But right now, the part of the part of the problem is you have to now decipher these complaint emails, and that's not effective. 113 Washington Street, 115, 110, that area on Lower Washington Street. We've had a business owner come here saying that he's been harassed by an individual that is claiming that city property is his property. We have his adjacent neighbors that know better, that they don't own the spaces in front of them. If you want to reserve a space for your business to conduct business, for your reserve space for your customers, you got to go through the proper channels. Special event permit, it's $50 a day. I know it very well. I pay that exorbitant fee. But you can't just claim something and expect it to be yours when it's city owned. Then the city said that they're going to install signs, which they did. And right underneath the sign, you have the property owner that's still claiming the spot's his. And no one's done anything about it. And I'm going to tell you right now, going forward, these code enforcement officers, the way that they treat residents, they try to push businesses out, they operate like a gang. And it's gonna stop this year. I'm gonna make sure of it. I'm gonna revisit this council along my journey of trying to do things legally as I've done for the last 10 years. Every 4 weeks, I'm gonna take you on a magical carpet ride with me, and we're gonna see if these people have the chutzpah to continue to do what they've been doing year after year after year to try to get rid of me. And we're gonna see if my business can actually thrive here without this harassment. It's only 2 people really that are doing this. And so when I see the managers of the fire department say that the code enforcement officers don't work for them or with them, but then I get these notices that have a letterhead from a code enforcement officer that says it's from the office of the fire marshal, somebody's not telling the truth here. So it's time to hold the property owners accountable that are ripping off the residents and the businesses. And it's time to monitor what these code enforcement officers have been doing year after year after year to do the same. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a public comment? All right, we'll declare the public comment period closed. Now we're going to go into discussion. First thing we have on the agenda is the 2026 strategic plan. This is an update from myself. What I wanted to have is a discussion with the council just to ensure where we are and what the next steps are, as we have been diligently working to create an update and a strategic plan in 2026 that looks beyond. So this council has put together an excellent framework around the strategic plan, and it's been circulated. We've had one request to escalate or to move up a priority around infrastructure. But beyond that, the feedback has been, I think, satisfied with where we are with that. The next step is to go in and start creating some metrics or KPIs, and for those of you who don't know what a KPI is, a key performance indicator that we would put around those in terms of objectives. And then we would work with the city manager, or continue to work with, I should say, the city manager and city staff to integrate that into our current, but probably more importantly, our future work plans to move and execute that strategic plan. So I wanted to open the floor to any discussion around the strategic plan, if there are any questions, items, or issues that you wanted to raise in advance of moving towards those next steps. Or do you feel good about it?
I'll bite. I feel like we haven't had a good discussion yet about how we'll be sharing the data or KPIs with the general public, or how we might make that data available and at what cadence. Do you have any thoughts so far about what that might look like?
Yeah, I think as we move forward, I'd like to actually post and make available the draft strategic plan regardless for view and comment by the public, and then what the framework is around the KPIs and the metrics we're considering, and allow for some feedback on that. I do anticipate we would share this, as I know there are plenty of folks I think who will be very interested in this and commenting on that and discussing with many counselors about that. So it's a good question, and I think we should and would plan on doing that.
I would encourage us to make sure that that data is like self-serve. I wouldn't want someone to have to wait for a monthly update during the council session if we could make that data available online or some other way.
Sure, we can look at how to do that. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Gelati.
Oh, you're beautiful. I'm moving back down where you are. Control you a little bit. I know this is a dumb question, but timeline, because we've talked, previous councils that I've been involved with and watched, we talk about it, but it doesn't seem to get any going. I'm sure you have because I think it's important to have a timeline. Also, I think it's very important, I know you mentioned it, but we gotta really I think we have to keep infrastructure and housing on the same level. I think do one without the other, I think is a mistake.
Okay.
Of course, we have other issues too, but I was hoping to get a timeline so we can have targets, try to hit them.
Yeah, the way I'm trying to work this through is we basically got the structure done in January and February. Now at our March meeting, it's been circulated. We go to the KPIs this month for us to review and discuss and potentially order or reorder. We'll seek to get public feedback, I think, over this month, so the sooner we can make it available, the better. And then and see if we can't create then a document that we can present for review and a vote either in April or at worst case May. But I really would like to see if we could achieve something in mid to late April. I don't know if anyone would disagree with that timeline or think it's too aggressive or. Okay. Any other questions or comments in regard to the strategic plan?
I thank you for the strategic work you're doing. We haven't done it in the past, and just to keep the record consistent, the one thing we have not done this year, we didn't do it last year, we didn't do it the year before, was to signal to the city manager while the year is still playing out, where we stand on the city's financial situation and what we expect, what we're shooting for next year. We tend to wait till September for the budget to come out and then have a month to pick over it. And by the time if we wanted to make some significant changes, it gets messy. And I think we owe it to the manager as soon as possible. But I also understand the strategic work you're doing, giving a framework for it, and the possibility of actually acting it out is important. And you're new, so it's not a complaint. Not a complaint.
No, understood.
Right.
I think we're going to start in April, the budget review process, Councilor Lavin. So I think that's going to be significantly advanced relative to your timeline.
Sure.
That you presented, but we should be starting that in April in earnest. So I think that'll start, plus we get an update tonight as well from the controller. So we'll get some insight then.
Right.
Councilor Zawadi, yeah.
I just want to encourage all council, including myself, that when we get presentations from different managers and our professionals, that we listen to them, that we ask a lot more questions. So when we go into budget season, we're taking the information as part of what we're developing. I felt last year we dropped the ball on it. I felt they did all these presentations to us, then we got the budget and went right to let's cut taxes or keep taxes zero, and like we didn't even listen to them. And we may have. I'm just saying, my perception was we didn't listen, and then we got bogged down with the budget process. Because the whole idea of bringing the managers in and talking was so we can get an idea of exactly what they need, why they need it, let them defend why they need it. Then we can ask questions as far as, well, what can you do without, et cetera, and then when we get to budget season, I think it's a little more to work with. That's my only recommendation.
So maybe to this point, we would ask that the city manager at our next session, and I know she's talked about this a few times, as well as tonight, what the budget process will be for 2026. All right, so that way we're all clear on it, we hear it, it's timelined, and we all know that we need to pay attention, to your point. All right. Anything else with regard to the strategic plan? Councilor Petropoulos.
Yeah, just wanted to say, I know we've had, I'm looking back over the first 2 years to reflect what Councilor Lavin and Councilor Gelati said. Yeah, we had a lot of talks, nothing really moved. And yeah, talking's fun, games are fun, but I like where we're headed this time, particularly with metrics, because unless we come up with them, so I say keep up the good work, but you're going to keep going in these meetings and move forward with everything, particularly if we're concentrating on certain, like for example, infrastructure and housing. Again, they kind of go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. So yeah, I hope to see the break through to the next step, which we never really got to the last time.
All right. Noted. Any other? All right. The next we're actually going to move home rule discussion to a later point in time. With regard to boards and commissions, I should note that we're having discussions already about this process, where it is and where it needs to go. And I know some groundwork's been done. So anything that Councilors Gelati and Gummo would like to say with regard to this, and then we can go to appointments.
Sure. Just wanted to provide an update to the council, but also to the public about what Councilor Gelati and I are doing. Basically, we've had one meeting so far. We met with the city manager and assistant city manager to understand what the appointment and interview process looks like. What we're filtering for and trying to understand is, like, are there inconsistencies? Are there efficiencies? We just, we don't know yet. So our plan is to meet with every single board and commission chair, understand what is working for them, what is not working for them, and try and come up with a more consistent process. The outcomes that we're hoping to achieve are potentially promote some consistency in process, depending on what we find. Increase transparency in the process. It's important that everyone on council understands how this works, but also everyone in the public understands what this process looks like. And hopefully, if we do our job well, make it easier to attract talent and qualified individuals to these boards. Anything you want to add, Councilor Gelati?
Well, I think you hit the big thing you hit on was transparency and letting people know how this whole thing works. We're going to try maybe even streamline it down a little bit, maybe change the application itself. We really just started to brainstorm a little bit. We had some recommendations from the assistant city manager and the city clerk, and we're working closely with them. So as we move forward, we can start tying this. Also, if we work on the charter, we have to make the adjustments with the charter too, depending on what we decide with the board and commission. So we'll get there.
Yeah, not a certain thing. Like, we are not convinced that there's charter modifications that are required, but it's one possible outcome.
All right.
Any questions?
Councilor Petropoulos?
So, you know, again, I mentioned in my report, the LDC is looking for people. Who's actually, I mean, I know you guys coordinate stuff, but who puts the word out that there's a vacancy? I mean, I mentioned it, I could tell the city clerk, are you guys in on that or part of that process?
I can take that for you, Counselor. So we will post that on the city's different various channels, on social media, as well as on our weekly updates, as well as on the website. We'll push that. LDC members also reach out to networks, and I think announcing those things here, and then town halls, community forums, all of those other places. With boards like LDC, IDA, they have very specific requirements on who can fill which seats, and it's just based on their legislation on how they're created. But we'll continue to do that, and the clerk actually brings in all of the applications and then distributes them to the staff liaisons and the council members to start diving through them.
I think my encouragement on this process, Councilors Gelati and Gummo, is as you look at it, and you did make reference to the charter, we do have a charter review towards the end of this year. I would think there's some opportunity to look at that and to identify whether or not there are potential enhancements to address some issues that may be inherent to this process. So I think what we can do today to make sure the process is transparent and clear, that's properly vetted, properly interviewed, where people who are considered are certainly suitable for the role, but also that those who participate in boards understand their role, its purpose, and what it achieves to do, and certainly to any liaison, that we understand our view is there to monitor and understand and report back to council the activities thereof. So I think in the short term, or at least where you're looking at today, it's how do we make sure our process is tight and transparent? And then as we look at the charter as an opportunity to look at this holistically, I think it's a good setup for that. So thank you both.
I think what I'm hearing from you, which is not a thing that we initially had on our problems to solve list, is you want to see greater clarity in roles and responsibilities. Am I understanding you correctly?
I think so long as each person who's serving on a board, and I don't mean this to sound in a way that they understand the role of under which they're about to take, whether it's a zoning board, the LDC, a planning board, that they truly understand what it is their role and responsibility would be on that board.
Full agreement.
Because they absolutely should understand that.
Yes.
Okay. And the training that they may be expected to take.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you both for that. Okay, we move into the report section. The one I'm going to talk to is the Finance Ad Hoc Committee. We actually met yesterday. It's our second meeting, and we're at the point now where we're actually forming and working on a debt strategy. What does that mean? So Geneva, as many know, operates and carries debt. That debt usually is aligned with very important projects we undertake. That debt is something that we currently use and will likely continue to use. The purpose of this committee is to understand this debt, understand really underneath what we're borrowing, why we're borrowing, what some of the metrics are that go into that. And I think as Councilor Petropoulos alluded to earlier, a lot of this focus is around metrics and understanding really what this debt means to the city. What are we carrying today? What are we carrying for the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, et cetera? And what flexibility do we have with debt? And it's very important for this council and the public to understand that, and that is one of the primary goals of this. So I'm appreciative first of the committee members, a couple of whom are here tonight on this ad hoc committee, and the work they are doing to really understand this, raise questions about it, and to create something that we intend to present, or is intended to be presented to City Council for consideration around having, at this point, a debt strategy. So this will be phased in. There'll be an overview and a discussion around debt, what the findings of the committees is, and what the recommendations are for council to consider with the idea or notion of actually implementing a debt strategy. And by the way, that debt strategy is pretty important, especially when it comes time for budget, when it comes time to ensuring the long-term fiscal health of this city, as well as ensuring that taxpayers are not burdened beyond where they are today to carry that debt, either today or the future generation. So it's very important, I would suggest. Once that's completed, we're moving then to cash, our cash management, but we aren't going to move to that until we have these debt recommendations completed. So that's the update on that committee. I wasn't sure if anyone had any questions with regard to that. I know it's not discussion, but I'm going to ask if anyone had any questions with regard to that. Okay. The only other thing I would bring up that's not on here is the Downtown and Economic Revitalization Committee has its first meeting on Monday. That meeting will convene with a primary focus first on identifying and ensuring that the committee members agree and have what the objectives are of that committee, which will initially work with a wholesale review of the agencies that currently have economic development as their core focus. That includes economic development or the business, their core focus. That includes the Business Improvement District, the Local Development Corporation, or LDC, the Industrial Development Agency, or IDA, as well as the city's efforts around economic development. So we're going to start really with understanding of what that is and how they function, with the idea of is what we're doing today make sense, and do we need to think about how we do things in the future, with a report back to council on recommendations or thoughts on these agencies. So that will commence on Monday. And that was my report. So we now turn to the city manager.
Yes, so council, I gave you a few documents. One of the documents you will see monthly. It was missed last month, but it is your data sheet. It includes consistent information. It includes things like population all the way down to our fund balance, as well as short-term rentals, active listings of residential sales, just indicators of what is happening in this community. It also is sent out, all of the city manager updates from the month is published by the city, and so this document is always at the end, just so we all have the same information in one space. The other document that I handed to you is a compilation report. So last month in my absence, the assistant city manager did our annual presentation of information from work programs and accomplishments throughout the year. This document is a companion piece to that. And so as we talk about the strategic plan and how that moves forward, that's in partnership to some of the work that's already done and helps to uplift it. So in the previous in the last 4 years, I can't believe I'm saying I will have been here 4 years in June, staff have spent some time developing work programs that tie into the budget. And so those metrics have been within the budget. And then annually in February, we report out on what that is. The goals that are part of this report were developed by council in a couple strategy sessions that they had throughout the various years. And then surrounding those goals are information around some of the metrics that we are regularly tracking. This is all in development still, and so some of that may shift and change, especially as new strategic plans are adopted. I'll also note, or other plans, or other studies. When council votes by resolution to adopt a comprehensive plan in 2016, these goals also align with that. Because once you adopt that plan, staff get the notion to move forward and carry out that work. And so it's a partnership between council and the plans that you're creating. And so that's what that document is. It will be published and on our website this week. I do have a couple copies if someone really wants it tonight. But it gives by goal area things that staff have been working on and tracking for at least 3 years. Some you'll see a dash. It doesn't mean that we didn't have that happen. We just didn't track that in 2023. So this, again, is an area of refinement. And I think the departments continue to do it. We've done it in the past. It disappeared, and I think what I know the mayor and I have talked about is building systems that go far beyond the mayor or I, or terms and changes in leadership. So those are your 3 documents. As far as updates, I already started with one. I do want to offer appreciation to staff. Last month, I wasn't able to attend the council meeting at the last moment because I had something arise, and they didn't miss a beat. They led, and I don't know what time teller finalize that presentation, but she was able to do that. Additionally, a lot of things have happened this first 2 months of the year. Everything from our PD call volumes being up above where they have been month to month in the past, to winter weather challenges, to equipment not working or breaking and being replaced. And best case scenario, very rarely do you know all of those details because I have staff that work around the clock to make things work in the city. So appreciation to them. Few updates by goal area, fiscal organizational stewardship. You will see 2 policies before you next month that are administrative policies, an AI use policy and a customer success policy, formalizing some things that staff are doing. We are about to begin recruiting for a motor equipment operator for DPW, so if you know people that are interested in that position, encourage them to log on to Ontario County's portal. Soon we'll also probably be looking for summer seasonal recreation attendants. It's coming very soon. We were awarded $250,000 for Pro Housing Communities TAG program. Those funds will support city-owned property redevelopment studies. So looking at what we have that we can redevelop into housing and having a strategy similar to what we did with OEO, but it takes it a step further. And this is a part of the comprehensive plan update, which we also receive funding for. So we'll marry those 2 things. Other items just to touch on, we are finalizing our community conversation spring program. We're going to change it a little. That's something where staff have town hall types of meetings, to use some others' terms. We're going to change that a little and maybe partnering with the library on some of that programming. And a couple other big pieces that community members should know. Sidewalk moratorium will end April 30th. So 6 months ago, we put in a moratorium saying, while we reviewed that policy, homeowners were not responsible for repairing their sidewalks if they were in disrepair, and we had gotten something on that. That moratorium does end on April 30th, which means homeowners will once again be responsible for those repairs. We did secure $50,000 for a sewer inflow and infiltration engineering study. And part of that, I just want to also share, we are exploring an open space conservation grant. This is a recommendation from the Stormwater Task Force to look at daylighting Castle Creek. That means potentially obtaining properties that are currently over Castle Creek. I share that because those property owners in that targeted area will be receiving letters from the city saying, would you want to voluntarily participate in this program and sell your home, should we receive the funding from this grant, to the city to begin this process of daylighting Castle Creek. It is a grant. We don't know that we will get it, but as part of that grant, you need those assurances. And so as property owners get that, that's something that some of them can evaluate. And that was a recommendation from one of those reports that was adopted, the Stormwater Task Force. And then Castle Street, if you've been there, you see the sign. Construction will begin again on Castle Street. Spring always means construction season has resumed, and there will be closings along that street. We'll continue to push out information on that, but just for your awareness, I know a lot of people drive through there, and we're getting closer. That is a full street reconstruction. We have not done one of those in a little while, so water, sewer, and the road will be fully milled and paved. And then as we talk about boards and commissions, there are always some differences there. There's also a housing authority city manager appointment that is by, yep, and so there is a vacancy there. If anyone is interested in doing that same process, it's just the city manager appoints to that board. And so I know that there's a vacancy there. And yes, that is one of our few boards that does have a stipend associated with it. That is not a city board, but we have a seat on the board. So a little different. And I think that is all of the pieces that I wanted to tie in. Thank you.
Councilor Lavin.
Just a couple of quick questions. Are we making progress on getting an occupancy tax on the short-term rentals?
We have not, so that falls under home rule legislation, so you would have to work through that process, and we have not had that movement from any council members at this point.
Your hotel operators feel, we're not being treated fairly. Wayne County has it in place, and others. The other question I had is on the overtime. We're getting close to a real good dashboard here, I think, on numbers, but you don't delineate by department, and you do hear a lot of scuttlebutt in town that I think we can push back that policemen getting close to retirement tend to have an expansion of overtime late in their careers that have an effect on their pensions. And, it's just talk of the town, but I think if we pay a little bit more attention to where the overtime is coming and have some sense that there's some scrutiny of the decision that overtime was worth it, and we understand where it's coming from, they'll just be easier to answer those questions out there in the community.
And we do provide the police department's overtime in the monthly full report that everyone gets. So we do have that, and we also can share that it has been going down steadily. I will say a lot of the overtime has been for those water main breaks as well as plowing and other things this time. But we could break it down by division or department for this report for you monthly.
Yeah, thanks.
And Councilor Lavin, the other thing I'd point out, we're anticipating a housing committee being formed probably in April that would take on understanding the short-term, long-term rentals, including the occupancy tax. So that's certainly something I think many of us are keen at looking at.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, next section, we're going into presentations, and Chief Evelyn will start with the police department. Speaking of,
good evening, Mayor. Tonight I'm going to be giving a little brief overview on the police department and the police department operations. So the Geneva Police Department, we are an accredited law enforcement agency charged with protecting life and property within the city of Geneva. The department is staffed across multiple divisions, including administration, the uniform division, and the detective bureau. The patrol division, they are responsible for traditional law enforcement, law and order operations, including crime prevention, vehicle and traffic enforcement, and investigations and enforcement of violations of state and local law. Many patrol division officers also serve on special details, including support as school resource officers, dare education officers, bicycle foot patrol officers, police instructors, evidence technicians, and special event support. The Detective Bureau, this includes detectives and youth officers and our drug enforcement unit. which conducts extensive operations in the area of drug eradication. The lieutenant detective in charge of overseeing the Detective Bureau is also responsible for serving as the evidence custodian, which is a monumental task to behold. The evidence custodian is in charge of maintaining the organization and chain of custody of all items taken into evidence into the police department. All detectives assigned to the police department or the Detective Bureau are certified in basic criminal investigations. They also continue to seek further advancement in fields of interview techniques, digital evidence collection, search warrant writing procedures, and the list goes on. Many of Geneva's command and patrol officers hold certifications as instructors in a range of critical operations, which support nearly continuous training operations in the department. Having in-house instructors saves the department time and money by having the opportunity to train internally. Our instructors include, but are not limited to, general police topics, firearms instructors, department armorers, defensive tactics to include taser and oleo resin capsicum, which is pepper spray or mace, and emergency vehicle operation, and much more. The department maintains a set of accredited policies and procedures to ensure that the best practices in law enforcement are consistently maintained. Reaccreditation occurs every 5 years by assessors assigned by the Division of Criminal Justice Services. The department has maintained its accreditation since 2006, and actually first thing tomorrow morning, myself and the road lieutenant are going to Albany where we will receive our reaccreditation plaque by the Accreditation Council, so we're excited for that. Number of staff. The department is led by a chief of police who is supported by 2 lieutenants and 6 sergeants. 1 lieutenant oversees the patrol operations, and the other is assigned as the lieutenant detective. As of 2026, there are 26 and a half full-time funded police officer positions on the roster, of which 3 also serve as detectives and 2 serve as school resource officers. One thing that most people don't know about the police department, and this has been a common complaint, almost a weekly complaint for me since I've been in this position, is contacting the police department. I feel like residents just inherently find it difficult that they can't call a police department. They always get somebody on the phone. We used to staff a dispatch or a desk officer position 24/7 at the police department. We lost that position in 2016. And so now if you call that admin line, if the admin's not at the desk, you're unfortunately not going to get somebody. You're going to get a voicemail. So I always recommend everybody from the public, if you need to get a hold of a police officer to file a report or just speak to somebody, either call 911 or the 911 Center non-emergency line. Some of the work programs and goals for 2026 is to modernize parking enforcement practices, expand officer wellness programming, and implement at least 3 community outreach initiatives with measurable improvements in enforcement efficiency and community engagement. In terms of parking enforcement system upgrade, we did look and receive some quotes for an upgrade to our parking system. I did sign a contract last week, so we're going to be moving forward with a company called T2 Systems. This is going to greatly enhance the efficiency and the legality of our parking tickets, make it easier for the court processes, and also there's going to be a collections package of this that's going to help benefit the city and people that don't pay their fines appropriately. So I expect to have this probably rolled out hopefully early April. Officer wellness initiatives. I'm looking to expand our wellness programming through partnerships to support the physical and the mental health of first responders. We will begin this expansion by researching local providers that specialize in working with first responders. I think for far too long we kind of ignore the mental health of any type of first responder who regularly and routinely deal with traumatic calls for service. And my hope is to offer that better support, and which will in turn reduce the liability for General Municipal Law 207C claims against the city. Community outreach expansion. I'm looking to strengthen our community engagement initiatives, including relaunching a motorcycle program. This is something I've been researching, going to be using non-local tax dollars for this, but trying to combat some of the difficult targeted motor vehicle enforcement that we have in the city of Geneva. Certain streets like South Main Street or some of the streets that are more narrow, harder to do radar enforcement. This would provide that unique opportunity to do targeted vehicle and traffic enforcement, as well as assist with community events, parades, escorts, which we routinely do as well. Some of the annual metrics. Our total police calls dispatched in 2025, we had 38,121. Body-worn camera activation hours, we had 20,116 videos, which equated to a little over 8,700 hours of video. Use of forces, we had 63 use of force events in the city of Geneva. And our overtime, this is something I was particularly proud of. Our overtime hours was 2,534, which was a 21% reduction from the previous year. And actually, I think we had less officers in 25 than we had in 24. And then if you look at the 2023 numbers, that it's almost, I think, a 40 or 45% reduction. I didn't do the math on that. And then lastly, before I wrap up, just some of the challenges that we have here at the police department. And this does not just necessarily pertain to Geneva, but as we have an increase in call volume, as well as an increase in total arrests made, the state legislature's made significant changes to the criminal justice with bail reform, discovery law changes, and raise the age. This significantly impacts the amount of time officers spend facilitating an arrest, completing the necessary paperwork, and transporting the individual to a correctional facility or a centralized arraignment area. And that is it for the police department overview.
Thanks, Chief. Any questions for the chief or comments, Councilor Petropoulos?
Chief, you doing the youth academy again this year?
Yes, we will.
Councilor Kane?
Chief, not a lot, we've got a paper in front of here, and I get a lot of people talking to me about different things, and they don't see what's in front of me here, but I just want to commend you, because for all the negative press you get, and then you get people that say, you know, how you're padding the overtime. The last 3 years, your call volume went from 35,000 to 37,000 to 38,000. However, your overtime went from 4,000 to 3,000 to 2,500. And another thing which is nice to see is the body cam video hours you have. You didn't have any in 23. You had 6,000 hours in 2024. And then last year, you had 8,723 hours. So your good metrics are going up, and the ones that people are concerned with are going down. And I think you're doing a good job. I know it's hard with the way New York is right now, but for those that have questions or concerns about the police department, I think we're very lucky here for what you do.
Thank you, Councilor.
One more.
Hold on one sec, please. Let's go over Councilor Gummo.
Gelati was before me.
Councilor Gelati.
Which one?
Gelati.
Chief, thanks for the report. I was gonna kind of like jump on Jamie's comments. It's pretty, it's pretty good seeing that stuff coming down. Is a 12-hour shift helping you? Is that making a little difference with the overtime?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that was probably the biggest attributor. We did a model, so we went into a pilot program May 4th of 2025 with both the police and the command officer union to try out the 12-hour shifts. That was a 90-day trial period. Since then, the police union did adopt the 12-hour shifts, and we continued the MOA with the command union. But we did a model as if with our current staffing, if we did not transition, and the overtime would have easily doubled for sure.
And one more question. How's the vehicle situation, the fleet doing?
Touchy subject, Counselor. We're getting there.
Councilor Gummo.
I promise this is not like a gotcha question. I'm just trying to understand the metrics that you presented. I agree that the number of hours of video have been increasing. No reported in 2023, 6,000 in 2024, 8,700 in 2025. But the number of hours have decreased since 2023. Can you help me understand what that disparity is?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to really explain. It could just be as simple as the type of calls that they're on. I've been on a domestic incident where it might take me 20 minutes to complete the report and move on, and it's a that incident was no longer needing police presence. I've also been on some that are 4 or 5 hours long. So although you're still going to get that one documented video, you're going to get the one documented call for service, but you might actually have 4 hours worth of action there where you're trying to find a good solution.
Understood. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilor Petropoulos.
I read recently that you have a drone program now.
We do.
Congratulations. I know you wanted that a couple of years back, and I hope that's working out. I mean, I know it's a very valuable tool nationwide, so
Thank
anything
you.
you want to mention there?
Yeah, you look at drones, they're probably one of the top 5 leading innovations for law enforcement right now. I was actually very proud to say that a few days ago we assisted the Ontario County Sheriff's Office with a stabbing that happened just outside the city limits, and our drone was actually able to was used to locate the suspect and help get the resources to the suspect. So it was a win for us and win for them for sure.
Chief, if you don't mind, I know this can be a bit of a touchy subject. One of the speakers tonight did raise some concerns as it relates to activities of outside agencies, in this case in particular ICE. I think with regard to at least this question, it isn't about what ICE can or can't do. I don't control that. You don't control that. None of us control that. I think it would be helpful if you could remind the council and those who are listening what the policy is as it relates to any outside agency, but in particular with ICE, and if you have any other comments in terms of what your observations are relative to that we could consider in terms of helping to support the Geneva Police Department and the Geneva community to ensure that we're maintaining an environment where people feel safe, and that we have people who ensure safety and whose role is to do that irrespective of situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did have a brief email exchange with the person with the public comment earlier, and that was where my recommendation, based on some of the information that I was gathering, was, there wasn't really much coming forward that I can really act on based in my scope of authority. So my recommendations were to the oversight people that in charge of Department of Homeland Security. As far as the Geneva Police Department policy, we enforce state and local law. We have no authorization over any sort of federal law. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, they are a law enforcement entity. They have a job to do just like we do. But when it comes to enforcing, whether it's documentation status or anything like that, largely it's a civil process that is handled through Immigration Customs Enforcement. We have no authority over that. We're not gonna assist because it's not our job, really, to just put it plainly. Now that does not mean that if we get called for help, we're not going to not respond, and that is both in part of the agency or a community member, and assess the situation. If there's a safety issue on scene, that is something that, and we need to, maintain public order, we will do that. But our standing policy is we're hands off. We're not sharing information. We're not using our facilities. We're not assisting in questioning or interviewing or detaining of anybody, unless there was a criminal investigation, and that is a completely different story.
Thanks, Chief. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
And I know it's a sensitive topic for a lot of people. I'd also state for those who reached out to me and have reached out to other counselors, it certainly is within the right of any citizen to observe and record the activities that may go on as it relates to that, so long as it doesn't either it shouldn't interfere with an action, otherwise that could result in some issues, but also that it doesn't impose any safety concerns for anyone involved as well. But certainly want to read it. But thank you, I appreciate that. I know it's, again, a sensitive topic. Councilor Lavin.
Chief, I know this is probably not the time to discuss this in detail, but it's been a difficult year, and I appreciate the difficult work you've done with 3 officers arrested and a councilman arrested with the scourge of drugs in the community. But I do think at some point when the cases are done and we can get away from the sensitivity of the process, I know the council has been concerned about the community knowing how seriously we take something like those events that happen, and that at some point to have a more public discussion about a small police department doing hard work in an urban environment in upstate New York
facing internal affairs processes and officers' finances and things like that. I think we need to know more about that as a community so that we can assure ourselves of the trust of the department going forward. I don't think this is the time or the place with cases still pending, but I also did want to thank you for, it's not easy to run a police department where you're dealing with the struggles of our culture every day, and to add to it the intrusion of things like drugs into the force made your job really hard this year, and I appreciate the work you did.
Thank you, Counselor. I would just like to add, just for the people listening, our policies and procedures are listed all online on the city website, which does include internal affairs. So that whole process kind of lays it out. Obviously, it's not the policy. Because of collective bargaining, we don't release what the findings are, but we will share if it was founded, unfounded, sustained. And then also, I will just add as well, the New York State Attorney General's office also has a law enforcement misconduct investigative office. So at times, we'll have conversations as well. So there's that extra layer of oversight where, at times they'll look and see how we handle things. And we've never had an issue in the past. So just want to share that.
Thank you. Any other questions for Chief? We appreciate the overview, especially for those of us who are new, which is in part the intention of this, also to prepare us as we enter the budget season to have a good insight in terms of where you are, what you're doing, and what your needs are, and what the opportunities are. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Okay. Chief Parada?
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
Council members, city leadership. I'm Del Parada, the Chief of the Geneva Fire Department. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight and for your continued support of our fire department. Tonight I'll brief you a quick, semi-quick brief overview of our department, who we are, what we do beyond the emergency lights and sirens, and how the work we do every day contributes to the safety, resilience, and the stability of the city of Geneva. The Geneva Fire Department is a combination department. We are made up of career and volunteer members. We provide fire suppression, rescue, emergency medical response, fire prevention, and code enforcement services. We operate under a structure of command staff led by a fire chief, a deputy fire chief, and supported by both career and volunteer personnel to ensure continuous coverage, regulatory compliance, and operational readiness. Our department is rooted in history and community service. We operate through 3 proud volunteer fire companies, the Hydrant Hose Company, Nestor Hose, and CJ Folger Hook and Ladder Company. Each contracted with the city and each bringing its own specialty and long tradition of service to this community. What I want to emphasize tonight is that the emergency lights and sirens the public sees are only the visible portion of what we do. Much of the work that keeps the community safe happens long before an emergency call is ever made. In 2025, the Geneva Fire Department handled 2,547 total calls for service. Those included 54 fires, 12 of them were working structure fires. We also responded to 395 rescue and EMS calls, 798 code enforcement activities, 216 fire prevention activities, and 38 mutual responses assisting neighboring communities. While the fires represent a smaller percentage of our calls, they remain some of the highest risk and most resource-intensive incidents we face. Each structure fire requires immediate staffing, trained interior crews, fully staffed apparatus, and structured command, accountability, and safety systems. In 2025, the city experienced 0 civilian fatalities. That outcome does not happen by chance. It is the result of fire prevention efforts, continuous training, and coordinated response system working as designed. Rescue and EMS responses accounted for 395 calls and included cardiac arrests, overdoses, traumatic injuries, and other high-risk emergencies. We also achieved 3 confirmed cardiac arrest saves and 10 overdose reversals while experiencing zero deaths. Behind those outcomes were more than 10,000 hours of training completed by our membership and nearly 19,000 personnel hours spent operating on emergency scenes. Those numbers represent residents who went home to their families because crews were trained, equipped, and systems worked as they were designed. One of the most important stories in these numbers, however, is what does not turn into an emergency. In 2025, the department conducted 798 code enforcement activities and 216 fire prevention details. This work includes inspections, follow-ups, public education, and hazard mitigation. Every inspection completed, every hazard corrected, and every educational program delivered reduces the likelihood of an emergency before it ever occurs. Each issue addressed protects the residents, businesses, and the city's tax base while reducing long-term response costs. Prevention truly is the backbone of public safety. The Geneva Fire Department currently maintains an ISO class rating of 3, on a scale where Class 1 represents the highest level and Class 10 represents no recognized protection. A Class 3 rating places the City of Geneva among well-protected communities in New York State and nationally. The ISO rating evaluates a community's ability to suppress fires by examining emergency communications, fire department staffing and training, apparatus and equipment, water supply, infrastructure, and operational readiness. Maintaining this rating contributes to lower insurance premiums for residents and businesses and supports economic development and reflects cities' continued investment in public safety infrastructure. Maintaining the Class 3 rating requires sustained commitment to training, equipment, staffing, and water systems, and we are actively working towards positioning ourselves for a Class 2 rating in the future. The fire department operates through a fiscally responsible combination staffing model. Our command structure includes a fire chief, deputy fire chief, 1.5 administrative aides, 4 assistant chiefs, 4 captains, 7 lieutenants. Operationally, the department includes 18 career firefighters supported by 38 interior firefighters, 28 exterior firefighters, and 25 support members. Within those ranks, we also have 8 certified fire police, 22 emergency medical technicians. We also have 15 building safety inspectors and 5 code enforcement officers, allowing the city to maintain regulatory oversight of more than 2,000 operating permits while still maintaining full fire suppression capabilities. The combination model also allows the department to maintain rapid initial response, scaled staffing for larger incidents, delivery prevention and enforcement services, and do so in a fiscally responsible manner. The department operates under a chief and deputy chief's leadership structure, with each position responsible for specific programs and operational areas. As fire chief, I focus on emergency operation readiness, budget, fiscal management, strategic planning, capital planning, policy development, personal administration, and performance analysis. The deputy chief focuses on fire prevention, code enforcement, and fire marshal duties, as well as public education, special events, and regulatory compliance. Together, these responsibilities ensure the department remains prepared for both emergency response and prevention activities. The department will complete a feasibility, I'm sorry, I gotta back up one page here, I apologize. Looking ahead at our 2026 work programs, we are gonna focus on several key priorities. We plan to expand our specialized rescue capabilities in structural collapse, rope rescue, confined space, and other disciplines. We also plan to increase community fire prevention outreach by 15% through additional education programs and partnerships. We will also complete a feasibility review of EMS medical billing to better understand the operational and financial impacts of such a program before presenting findings to council. Typically, I think we're going to do it hopefully by the 4th quarter this year. And finally, we'll continue our regional collaboration efforts through quarterly shared services meetings and partnering with our neighboring departments to improve that coordination and efficiency. The numbers and information shared tonight tell a clear story. Our Geneva Fire Department is responding to thousands of calls, preventing hundreds more, saving lives, protecting property, maintaining a strong ISO rating, and planning responsibly for the future. Public safety isn't something you measure only when an emergency happens. You measure it by how prepared the community is before emergency ever occurs. We're proud of this department. We're proud to serve the city of Geneva and grateful for the partnership we have with this council in protecting our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Questions, Councilor Petropoulos?
Chief, you failed to mention one thing you guys do. When there's flooding or basements full, you pump it out, right?
We do now, yes. For a long time we did not, but we created a program over the past few years with the stormwater task force, and we are now doing the best we can.
Councilor Gelati.
I'll bring it up. Volunteer situation. How important is it to you? I know it's a little bit of the answer, but I mean, I'm a volunteer and I'm probably the average age right now, Nestor Hose. So I know we're trying to do some recruitment. How's that going? And I think explain more the role the volunteer plays and how important they are with the way our department's set up. That might help us.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a pain point for not just our department, but nationally. Volunteerism is down. In comparison to about 10 years ago, there was about 900,000 active volunteers in the United States, and we're at about 600,000 now. Geneva, the city of Geneva fire departments have not seen an operational decline. We started off with a large contingent of volunteers. You'll see adjoining departments and other areas in our county that have fallen off, but we started with a much bigger stock. We don't know exactly why. There's a large group of fire chiefs going to Albany tomorrow and throughout next week to talk and see what they can do at a strategic level to increase. Geneva's family traditions and history had a large role for a long time supplying our ranks. And I think that maybe just isn't a thing anymore. We do the best we can to recruit and retain our membership. But the increased unfunded mandates, training requirements, economic impact, there's a lot of things that affect our volunteerism across every organization. I think you see it in a lot of, from Knights of Columbus to the Moose Clubs, Elks Clubs, these different organizations, you see volunteerism declining across the board. I don't think that we're any different from that.
Councilor Gummo.
I have a question for you about some of the data, which I think tells a good story, but I want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly.
Okay.
So in 2024, you responded to 2,759 calls. In 2025, you responded to 2,547 calls. This is like, I had to do the math because I'm terrible at math. It's like 17 fewer calls a month. And but code enforcement visits were up. Correct. In 2024, you had 711 visits. In 2025, you had 798 visits. So you increased the number of visits you're making per month around like 6 to 7.
Yeah.
How like strongly correlated or causational do you think this is? The question is basically like, as you do more code enforcement, do you think you're directly reducing the number of calls that you have to respond to?
Yeah, I think that's not even my opinion. I think it's factual.
Okay.
There's a lot of data to support the more fire prevention and code enforcement activities you accomplish, the lower the risk of any emergency, typically fires though.
So I guess second question, how did you get those code enforcement visit numbers up? Like what changed?
Well, there's a difference between data and operations, right? So we've been historically bad at keeping good data. And over the past 4 or 5 years, we've increased our capabilities of collecting good data. And we also, over the past 4 years, brought on a deputy chief who serves as a fire marshal, and he is very good at staying on and developing new tasks and opportunities for us to get into places and inspect and develop better programs. So we dedicated the staff and resources to that, and we saw a good increase. So
cool. Thank you.
Chief, I think, first of all, thank you for what you do, and of course, to the fire department, what they do, paid and the volunteers all in. I think as we, and Councilor Lavin, I think, likes to bring this up fairly regularly, and other councilors like to speak about this. I think as I look at the fire department and what it represents here and what it is that it does here, I think unquestionably represents a pride point for the city, and certainly one we want to continue to uphold, maintain, and support. And I hope, and I know, and I believe this because we've talked about this, is how do we look at firefighting and the needs in the future, as we look at shared services, as we look at the volunteer base, as we look at mutual aid calls and what those mean. I think what I'd like to say is, I'd like to encourage us to continue to think differently in how we maintain this incredible fire department and how we look to the future and potentially just as we move forward. So I think what I look forward to is getting your insights as well as the fire department's insights, what we can do better, what we can do differently as we move forward, especially as we enter the budget season and we get into these discussions. So more of a comment there than anything else, and appreciation. Anyone else have any comments, questions? Okay. Chief, thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, this presentation has, for those in the room and online, an actual presentation that we can all view. So Controller Blowers is getting that set up.
Down. Oh, done. Sure.
So glad you're here. All right, I'm right there. Okay. Thank you. And thank you for letting me postpone this from last month. I wanted to make sure I had a little bit more accurate data. Before I get started, I wanted just to let everyone know that these numbers are unaudited. That doesn't mean they're not accurate. It just means that they haven't been audited by a third party. In the history, recent history, we have only had one or two adjustments, sometimes zero, each year. So these numbers are going to be very accurate, and we're done with all spending and all money coming in from 2025. So these will be the most up-to-date numbers that we have. And as I'm going through it, that's probably a good time to jump in for questions rather than at the end, just because it's department-based. So if you have a question about a specific department, just jump in there. That's fine. So starting with the general fund, in 2025, we ended up with 21.1 million in revenue, 21.5 million in expenses, deficit of 385,000. We did budget for a $460,000 draw from fund balance. So I wanted to notate that at the bottom, because you see a deficit of 385,000, you think, geez, we missed the mark here. That was a projected drawdown. So what that means is, instead of trying to raise revenue in other areas, fund balance was healthy enough to pull from there to pay for certain things, whether it's equipment or other projects or programs. So overall, that was right about where we had expected the budget to be in
So
the,
Adam,
in the general
apologies.
fund.
This
Yes.
just means the word deficit, we shouldn't be overly concerned. It's more of a terminology.
Correct. In this case, yes, a deficit of 385 is not great, but we budgeted a technical deficit of 460.
And as I'm looking at these, is the revenue and expense, are they within what the projections would be? In other words, are they up, down, on target?
So they're very close to where we had originally budgeted. They're a little bit low. Both are a little bit low. We were closer to like 21 and a half, or I'm sorry, 21.7-ish for both. So we are low, but again, that's the revenues and expenses came out relatively close.
So I think I would just ask is, wherever you have a variance, just to demonstrate or show what the
Sure.
variance is to the revenue, expense, and deficit. It's always helpful just to understand. I think
Yep.
that's more important than the deficit component if it's expected.
Yep.
But it'll show you the variance
Absolutely.
for folks. Thank you.
2 hours is up.
All right. So going over a few of the revenues, our major revenues: property tax, pilot, sales tax, and then state federal funds. All of those numbers of those four I just mentioned were above what had been projected. The only reason property tax was a tiny bit higher was because there's what's the tax called, Councilor Grimaldi? The I can't think of it off the top of my head, that covers the prior year. Omitted taxes. So that's when a property changes hands, and in that time, the
Yes.
it was not taxable. The new owner
Right.
gets it, it's taxable.
Payable
Small
the
amount.
next year.
Yes. Pilots came in a little bit under, and that was due to we did not receive the Lakes Edge pilot. So that came in slightly under than where we projected. Sales tax, we projected 5.1 million, came in at 5.3. State and federal funds was right about where we had planned, a little bit low. The only reason for that is just timing, so we will get that in 2026. So it's based on reimbursement schedules, so the funds are booked as a receivable right now for 26. Other tax revenues, occupancy tax, mortgage tax, public utility, and special assessments. The first three all came in quite a bit over budget, which is great. Special assessments, that is those are the payments made from Hobart William Smith and the hospital to the city, so we know those exact amounts each year. And obviously those came in at what we had said they would be, because we have a schedule of that. But occupancy tax, mortgage tax, and public utilities came in a little high. And anything that came in high, we can typically see that prior to the end of the year, because a lot of these are quarterly. So after 3 quarters, we kind of project where we are. That's why you may see in the 2026 budget, the numbers are higher than they were in 2025 for the budget, because we're seeing that trend. 2 new revenues in 2025, cannabis tax and short-term rentals. The short-term rental number is not typically going to be that high. Those are 2-year rental permits, but the first year of it, everybody was kind of out getting the permits. So I would expect about half of that once we start cycling through, hopefully half of that. And then cannabis tax, that was not for the full year. That was for, I believe, 3 quarters of the year. And so I expect that number to grow as well. Interest and penalties, earned interest is earned interest on the city's money in the bank. So that was a big win for us this year. That came in quite a bit over budget, about $25,000 over budget, which was great. We got some good interest rates this year. And property tax, school tax penalty, those aren't, we're not always proud of those numbers, because it just means that payments were made late on a tax basis. But there are people who are making more interest on their money, keeping it in the bank, than paying us based on our penalties. We've tried to offset that in the past. We also don't want to harm the people that are struggling to make their tax payments on time. So that's kind of a delicate subject, but those did come in over budget as well, which at the end of the day is still a revenue that we use to offset the budget. So general fund expenses. So what I've done here, starting with public safety, is all I've got listed, the budget, the actual, and I can answer questions on these. I have the full report in front of me, and I can also circulate that so everyone can see it. But that will be a part of the audit that we do in the spring as well. So police, very close on budget, a little bit under. It's our largest department budget, and they came in very, very close, a little bit under. And I know overtime is something that comes up quite a bit. The chief touched on it, but that number did stay under budget this year in 2025, which was great. So he's done a good job to make that push. Fire, a little bit over. There was some extra training that comes up. It seems to come up all the time. I was talking with the fire chief before the meeting, and it sounds like they get new safety protocols frequently. Then there's 18 members that need to go through all of that. So a little bit over on training. That's where we saw the overage in 2025. Recreation budget 391, actual 342. Some of that's going to be because we did have some turnover. So some things that were planned, and then there was an adjustment period where new people were coming in, and we were trying to limp our way through a few things. So we didn't actually get to everything that we wanted to get to, and as a result of that, we came in under budget. So I guess a bright side to not accomplishing everything that you planned to at the beginning of the year. No fault to anyone, just had people leaving and had to still keep things going. Buildings and grounds, they came in quite a bit under budget. There are some departments, I will say, that the staffing at the beginning of the year was in such a way where, so for example, Taylor here was not in the budget under city manager, but at the end of the year, that's where her position came out of. So you'll see some fluctuations there. All of that remedied for 2026 and put in the correct spot, but not necessarily something that we would come to council with and make a budget amendment, because it's really not, it's not doing anything different. It's just accounted for this way. Engineering, a little bit over, again, not, I mean, that it's what, 20,000. So for a person like me, I think, okay, that's not too bad. We look at that in the grand scheme of things. But day to day, I believe there was some engineering survey costs that we thought could be bonded for that we found out could not be bonded for, certain design costs and things like that. So they did come out of the general fund. Highway, the actual was a little bit higher. I believe not the whole reason, but a big chunk of that reason was overtime and the salt, purchasing of salt for the roads, because we did have a rough winter and even prior to the end of 2025. So that's the result there. Development services, which is essentially our code enforcement group, that came in under budget, and a lot of that is just we budget for different types of code expenses, court fees and things like that, and time at court. If we don't have as many cases, if we don't have as much need, there's other outside agencies and other jurisdictions that we sometimes have to reach out to that could be a cost. If we don't have as many of those, we stay under budget. We did that in 2025. City manager, you can see budget 206-ish, actual 234. So a chunk of that would be when the assistant city manager came on and her salary was being paid out of that department. One thing I also want to mention is for 2026, we did change the way we do benefits. So they're going to be broken out by department now and not just in one lump sum at the end. In this presentation, unfortunately, you'll see it in one lump sum. But what we're going to do is break it out for 26. Then we're going to go back and break it out all for 25. So we have a historical data of not just here was all the Social Security paid out, Social Security tax, but here's what it costs for comptroller's office. Here's what it costs for city manager. Some more general fund departments, mayor and city council, the ones who are returning. You guys did great. You kept everything right where it needed to be. I know you were very diligent on your budget last year. Kidding, it's pretty much all salary and I believe NICOM. So there's not much that goes into there. Some advertising and miscellaneous.
They have about $2,000 for those miscellaneous
Yep.
expenses, which
Yes.
I think is where they went over.
Yeah. Yep, I think that was it. City clerk. Yeah, city clerk. Dead on. Not bad there. Budget 160, actual 162. Again, there's so many things that. Same with a personal budget. You plan for 12 months ahead, and something changes or a fee changes mid-year. A lot of places we deal with, their annual budget is not calendar year. So while ours is, someone like the state, for example, who is, I believe they're April to the end of March, they approve something and it changes how we handle our summer, fall, and winter. So all that stuff, we do take it into consideration, but we like to leave ourselves a little wiggle room as well. comptroller, perfect as always. Only a couple $100 off.
I trusted this up until now.
I debated, for the purposes of this presentation, making that number exactly the same, but I decided not to. It just happened to work out that way. And to be fair, the prior comptroller worked on the 25 budget, so they're not even my budget numbers. I just handled it afterwards, so I'll give her some of the credit there too. Assessor's office came in a little bit under budget. That's another one that it depends on how many court cases we have, depends on how many challenges we have to assessments, but our assessor's been doing a great job at handling those things outside of court so that we don't have to incur those costs, which is a big deal. IT came in quite a bit under budget. I will say some of those costs, we are kind of changing the way that we incur those. So a couple things were for software for other departments, and those came out of those departments rather than IT. So IT is one where there's always a lot of big plans. Peter always has a lot of big plans, and then he gets super busy, and at the end of the year he's like, what should I do with all this? So we try to encumber some of those funds so that we don't lose them, and still able to accomplish those projects in 2026. So I believe there's a couple security measures that he's putting in place that will take some of that savings from.
That was the biggest piece on this, is we weren't able to have the vendor because of delays in purchasing things for our security cameras. So that's almost that entire amount.
Yeah. O&I, which I don't even know if that's what we call that anymore, but that that department came in quite a bit under budget, and again, there was a lot of turnover in that area, and a lot of that is also grant funds. So it's the expense side of a grant that if there's delays on the funding source, we just don't get to it. And so again, those you'll see a lot of that will be coming out in 2026. Those kind of programs and projects.
For those that don't know, Office of Neighborhood Initiatives was something around the remnants of planning and economic development. In New York State, you have to have a chart of accounts, and once you create your chart of accounts, you'll see some of those things. Development services is code enforcement. That's all aligned with the chart of accounts that we currently have. As we talk about charter review and other things, getting alignment on that chart of accounts, I know when I was in another position, my title was always wrong because that chart of accounts just hadn't been changed in 30 years. And so it does get a little confusing, but O&I is where planning and economic development, where we had a lot of transitions.
Human resources, right about on target there. Budget 187 and change, actual 183. A lot of their expenses that are controllable are advertising for positions and things like that. So if we're able to fill positions quick, or a lot of hiring can happen internally, there's some cost savings there. Not a huge amount. And then employee benefits, that's a huge number. So budgeted 4.4 million, actual 4.8. One thing to note there is we certainly plan for what the increases in health insurance are going to be, and then different, the retirement steps or retirement tiers that people are at. But there are changes that happen throughout the year. They call them qualifying events. So if there's a qualifying event and someone goes from not on the city's insurance to on the insurance, it's a pretty big chunk of money that comes out. So that's a tough one to budget for, and it seems to be every year one of our, if not the biggest expense, and the toughest one to really get a grasp on what that number is going to be. We try to get as close as we can. We obviously know Social Security, the percentage and things like that, but so many things change, and then people leave, new people come on, and their benefits change. So, and I will say we are trying to clean up some of those things in contracts and make it more more of a standard, more consistent amongst the different negotiating groups, so that there isn't confusion when we're going to budget, or when there are those events, how we handle it.
Adam, I'm trying to be careful and let you go through these. 'Cause
Oh, yeah,
this,
go ahead.
For the purpose, I think, of Councilor Lavin and others, this is a great way to start with getting a good understanding of the budget and where the numbers are. So I'm trying to digest that as we go. But the one thing with regard to employee benefits and just that massive number, it is a massive number.
It is.
And it's one of those things that it feels like we can or can't control. And I think as we go into budget season, understanding what we can and can't control as it relates to that and decisions around that will probably be fairly important. And I know something when we looked at last year's, where I was looking at last year's budget, the percent increase of that was also fairly large,
It
if not
is.
one of the largest.
Yep, it is. And there are things that can be done. So we sometimes will say that those numbers are set, and they are for the upcoming budget. But where there are areas where we can make changes are in those contract negotiations. Obviously, it's a negotiation, so if we're taking something or someone's giving something up, they are going to want something in return. So we've been trying to make some good progress there. I think in the last few years there has been good progress. It just takes so long to realize those savings, because an employee can work 30 years, 20 years in the same organization, and then we don't see that until that turnover happens. So debt service, that was exact because we do know what those numbers are at the beginning of the year or prior to the new year. So those are what we had planned for in the general fund. There's a couple other expenses that legal costs, insurance, and utility costs. The utility costs are all of our electric bills, things like that at all our facilities. So all three of those were over budget. Legal costs were over quite a bit, about $213,000 it looks like. So, and we can't explain a whole lot of that in public session of why, but there is ongoing litigation that is the reason for that. Insurance, that I'm trying to unpack that a little bit more. It seems like it was budgeted low, but myself and the city clerk have been working with the insurance company to get a good grasp on that, make sure we're budgeted appropriately for the future. We felt like we have that in 26, so we should be good. And then utility costs, I mean, I don't know what to say on that other than, we're all feeling that. And that's, we budgeted a pretty significant increase from 25 to 26 because of everything going on around NYSEG and the utility companies at this point. So hoping that we over budgeted for 26 and things will get a little bit more steady, but we wanted to be careful there. So on to the water fund. Revenue 3.3 million, expenses 3.47, deficit of 78,000. So that is a deficit. We did not plan on a deficit, planned to break even. The water fund had some issues in 2025, and we can kind of go here to, well, I'll get to the issues in just a second. So metered sales, budgeted 3.1 million, actual 3.2. So that's great. That means that we brought in more revenue from water usage than we had planned. And that's directly related to the consumption. So we base it off of what our rates are and what our expected consumption is. Again, a very difficult number to project, but we do our best to get close. And it came in a little bit higher. So that means that helps our bottom line for sure. All other revenues, there aren't many in the water fund. It's things like miscellaneous or sale of scrap, things like that. Some permits, but not a lot. So there you can see we budgeted 182 and came in under. So overall, our revenues came in quite a bit higher than where we had projected, but our expenses came in even higher than where we projected. And we'll get into that here in just a second. So water maintenance, basically all of that is overtime. The water breaks have been I've never seen this many water breaks in this amount of time, and it didn't just start in January. The Director of Public Works said a couple nights ago that we average about 30 to 35 water breaks a year, and we've had 19 already in 2026, and that was going on during 2025 as well. So that difference there in the water maintenance department is going to be directly related to that. And it's not just the overtime costs, it's the supplies and the inventory that go into making those repairs and having the parts on hand. And then in the water plant, there were separate issues related to pumps and equipment at the plant that, I talked about it a couple weeks ago at the capital projects and debt meeting, that you can plan all you want, but if something breaks at one of these plants, you have to act on it, and that's what happened there. There were a few pumps, I believe, that went down, and we have to have that duplication so that we're never left stranded with no pumps. So we had to get that taken care of. All other expenses, that's going to be your employee benefits and insurance and utility costs as well. So that put us over a little bit. Not too bad on the other for water. Sewer, 5.43 in revenue, 5.69 in expenses, deficit of 266,000. So I believe it was October or November. Myself and the Director of Public Works came before City Council to do a budget amendment to move, I believe it was about 350,000 from the sewer fund balance to the ATAD capital project, because there were costs that we were using for the ATAD capital project that then we were told did not qualify for reimbursement. So that whole process has been remedied, and we won't fall into that situation again based on some clarification we got. But that outside of that, which I know is a big chunk, the sewer fund would have had a surplus at the end of the year if not for that kind of one issue. Now, granted, it was a large issue, and it was something that, like I said, it's been taken care of, and it's not going to come up again or happen again. We did receive the clarification that we needed from the agency, but wanted to make you aware of that. Metered sales, a little bit over budget, which is good. You may wonder, okay, if water was over by a larger amount, why wasn't sewer? It's not a one-for-one with water and sewer. There's some accounts, some customers that are water customers that are not sewer customers, and so there's a lovely rate study going on that kind of explains all this, and it's a lot, but it's not a one-for-one with water and sewer, so that's why you'll see that. The other revenues are we get a payment from the town of Geneva and the town of Waterloo, so those are budgeted for. The actual that came in a little bit less was we also budget for permits for our industrial users, and if it's based on a percentage of their usage. So if their usage is down, the permit cost is down, and that's what happened with that, because the Waterloo and Geneva agreements we have, we know those numbers going into the year, so those are always exact. Sewer maintenance came in quite a bit under budget. A lot of that is sewer and highway are shared, and so when more things are happening on the highway side, less is happening on the sewer side, and that's how it was last year, especially towards the end of the year with the weather. So didn't get to as much on the sewer side, but that's why you'll see the highway side a little bit higher. And then in the wastewater plant that came in under, a lot of different things there. We plan for different chemicals, different permits, different regulations that we have, and it's based on usage, consumption. It's based on a lot of things that vary. So that's why you'll see that number kind of fluctuate. But in 2025, came in under budget, which we love to see. Then the other expenses, that's a big chunk to just throw into other, but it's essentially your benefits again, and the insurance, utility bills, things like that. And again, that'll all be broken out for 2026, and then we will go back and do it for 2025 as well, so that you can compare. And then this last slide, these fund balances, this is the only thing that's not just 2025. So this is where, at the end of 2025, I took that number, and then what was budgeted to be pulled from fund balance in 2026. So these fund balance numbers would be what the fund balance would be at the end of 2026 if everything were to go as planned. And the reason I did that was because sometimes if I don't take all of the 26 numbers out, you may think, okay, well, there's a much larger amount here when it's really already been allocated for something else. So I wanted that to be clear in this. There is a fund balance policy. General fund is, the policy currently is between 12 and 15% of your total budget. That's what the 16.57% number represents. So we're a little above where we want to be, but that's good in my opinion. Water and sewer, those numbers typically you want around 30 to 35%, but there's more wiggle room in those funds because they are so much smaller. So throughout 2026, I would like to see those numbers come up a little bit, and the only way to do that is to bring in more revenue than we spend. So that is my goal with the departments for 2026, is to do that, as is my goal for every year. So we will work towards that.
And Adam, I think you missed the point where
Yes.
we've brought those numbers up quite significantly, because they were at 10 and below
Yes,
just a few years ago.
Yes, there was a year when the water fund balance was $165,000, and that was a very scary time. It wasn't the reason that I left and came back, but no, I'm kidding. It was yeah, it was not a pleasant time, but we did build that back up, and you know, we're grateful that we did, because there, as you can see in 2025, there were some issues at the water plant that needed some extra expenditures, and if we only had $165,000 fund balance, we wouldn't have been able to do that. We would have had to look for other funding sources and paid interest and things like that, and we definitely don't want to do that. So they have been built back up, but as comptroller, I want to make sure that we keep them strong. And that's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions, comments? The only thing I'll say, Adam, thank you for all of that. It's a lot in there, and it's probably one of those critical things we're going to be doing over the next however many months. It almost feels like any month. I think as we move into budget season in particular, hopefully this is a good foundation for people to start to see where the numbers are, what the drivers are. So as we get into much more detail in the coming months and
Can't
look
wait.
at 2027 and beyond, yes. Again, why you probably came back was just for that.
Absolutely.
So we appreciate that.
If I may just add on that, next month, I think it's the second meeting, we'll be starting that process and discussing it. We started it in April last year, as Councilor Gillot said, and really we start working with the department heads this month to start thinking about those programs and services as well. So budget is, I wish it wasn't all year, but it's an all year sport, and so we will start that next month with all of you.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Kane?
Yeah, and I'm new, so I don't know. That's why
No.
I'm asking him, because we're not just pretty faces up here on the left-hand side of the dais. But our job is oversight and accountability. So when you start having somebody, when they're getting close to going over budget, or they're going over budget, and the red flags come up, do you come and let us know? Say, hey, wait, look, you know.
So That's an interesting question. So we don't typically go to city council and say, you know, we're starting to have a concern. What I try to do is, obviously I'm meeting with department heads as frequently as needed, and going to Amy on those things, and then through the monthly reporting that we do. What I've done in the past is when there's been concerns of something, I've verbalized that sent the spreadsheet, but then also here's some messages on this is an issue, this is something we should be, you know, thinking about. So when there is a problem at a plant, or we're seeing an increased number of overtime or something like that, I try to allude to that in the reporting so that we can keep an eye on it. But certainly if there's recommendations or information that you want as a council, I'm happy to provide anything that is helpful.
And any large things, so anything over 50 to 75,000 where there's going to be a movement.
Yeah.
Like Adam said, we always bring that forward. That's part of our financial policy to say we have to go into fund balance for this. But if we're not going into fund balance, then unless it's over probably about 50,000, we don't bring that forward, and Adam works with them to figure it out. Is there another line they could be doing that with? And over time, you'll get that continual report. So we had shared that with council last year as well, saying we're going to be over on overtime as we have these weather events and things like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Moving on. We're going to start with, or go to unfinished business.
Iron Man.
Iron Man.
We have a presentation.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, Ken. You've been sitting there so patiently, and I was about to just blow right by you.
Sure. Oh, I see.
So as Nicole gets this pulled up, my name is Ken Hammond. I am the race director for Ironman 70.3 Muscle Man here in Geneva. I have been with Ironman, this will be my 16th season. I spent 8 years with Ironman 70.3 Syracuse, and in the middle, kind of a little bit of an overlap with a race we did in Columbus, Ohio. On top of that, I am also a full-time teacher in Cazenovia School District outside of Syracuse. So I share the 315 area code as well. I'm not someone from outside of the area coming in here. So I still bleed orange and blue for Syracuse, but I don't know if I want to claim that right now with our basketball season that we've got going on. But tonight what I wanted to share is last year, I've always kind of been under the assumption that the Ironman carries its name, right? You throw an Ironman logo on something, everyone kind of knows what it is. And it was a little bit late in the year, it was probably May or June, when I realized that in Syracuse I was a lot more involved. And here, and I haven't been, and I want to be now. So I reached out to Consular Petropoulos, thank you. I had it locked and loaded. And the former mayor to come out and be a part of the event. And actually, thankfully, they showed up at the right time, and they got to hold our finish line tape for us and got to see race day. But tonight I wanted to share what Ironman is, who we are, what we are here in the city of Geneva, and kind of the different opportunities that we have. So on our slide, I know the print is really small, but Ironman itself started in 1978. It was actually a competition between the three branches of military in Hawaii, the Marines, the Air Force, and the Army at the time. And a full distance Ironman is a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike ride, and then a full marathon, a 26.2 mile run. So 140.6 miles that at that point took them about 3 days. Now you have to do it in 17 hours. Here in Geneva, we have an Ironman 70.3, which is a half Ironman. It's 70.3 miles, it's a 1.2 mile swim, a 56 mile bike ride, and a half marathon, 13.1 mile run for 70.3 miles. This is an older map, but in 2026, we are looking at 118 Ironman 70.3s alone globally. And this is, again, kind of an older map. This map is from 2019, I believe. But it's more or less to show that we are all across the world. This year, actually, our World Championship, we've gone to a rotational championship where Ironman 70.3 World Championships will actually be in Nice. They're returning to Nice this year. And those are usually held in October. Ironman 2025 here in Geneva. On top of all of this, we have a staff of about 30 to 35 that come in, but realistically, the race is put on by local volunteers. We had over 900 volunteers locally, or I should say shifts filled locally last year. With those 900 shifts that were involved, we have kind of a style where we involve volunteer captains. So that way our volunteer coordinator doesn't work with all 900 people. We recruit about 30 captains, and they gather a group. Each captain then tends to come with some form of nonprofit. They tend to be associated with a nonprofit in some way. And because of that, we have a branch of Ironman called the Ironman Foundation, where we donated, and it's an annual donation, it's every year, we donate $15,000 back to these local nonprofits. So these nonprofits every year. So last year, again, it was just one of those years where we had that $15,000 donation. And here you can see these are some of the photos from last year. Mostly these are all right at Lakefront Park, right around the Welcome Center. A few more photos. Again, this is a little bit more out in the bike course. My favorite is actually that top right, a nice drone shot. We come in, for those that know the history of this race, it started in about I think it was 2003, and it started out in Seneca Lake State Park. A little bit of a smaller race. They had about 200, 300. Their peak, I think they got upwards of 700. Ownership had changed a few times, and we came in 2019 and bought it post-year there. And have been operating it. Obviously, 2020 was canceled, so we started fully operating in 2021. We had a little bit, actually, we talked about at the LDC this morning about some beach stuff, and we actually build a dock now in front of the Welcome Center because we think it's a great way, it's a great shot. If you get a good photo, you get the iHeart New York, you get the Welcome Center in the background. And then in the bottom left here, you can see this is actually kind of a quieter photo, but that whole lakefront part right in front of the Welcome Center, if you talk to Jen over at the Welcome Center, they always talk that they have record days. It gets very crowded in that area. And then to show that I am a part of this, on the top left, that's actually my son and myself. He gets volunteered, quote unquote, to come out and help with the race. Him and my wife come out and help. But last year, or every year, I should say, at every event, Ironman sends out surveys to our athletes, those that participated in our events. And last year, I wanted to share some of the things that our athletes say, right? We get these survey results back, and I wanted to share specifically what they said about the city itself. They put Geneva as a 90% overall in cleanliness, and an overall host city at 90%. I forget the exact global average, I think it's in the high 70s. The overall event satisfaction, as you can see there, is also 90% with a global average of about 87%. And an NPS, or a net promoter score, of a 61, which actually put us in the top 10 in the U.S. That put us as one of the best, or one of the top 10 events in the U.S. last year. And then as far as this year is concerned, as of last week, when I sent this over to Nicole, we are at about 72% full. And when we say full, we consider that to be 2,100 athletes. For us, we find, we feel that about 2,100 athletes is what we consider full, because that's what we feel is safe out on the roadways once you figure attrition and dropouts and things like that. And that gives us, the athletes, the best experience with the safest experience. Where athletes are coming from, this is a 5-year average over all of the years we've been here. We've had, in total, 6,476 athletes travel from outside of New York. And that is just within the US, but they've traveled from outside. And then the average 5-year, these are our top 9 states. Obviously, number 1 is New York. So this is number 2 through number 10. But these are our top 9 from the 5-year average, right? So 5-year average, we've had 40 athletes from Ohio, 152 from Ontario. So we can kind of see that we're seeing a lot of people from all over kind of the Northeast and this side of Canada. The favorite part I like here is what was represented as a whole. These were the countries that were represented. I was actually making this map. I learned where Uzbekistan was in making this map. I did not know that that was where it is. But United States, Canada, obviously the big ones. Australia, Uzbekistan, South Africa, Switzerland, Costa Rica, and the UK. And then we had 40 states, 39 if you don't count New York. So we had 40 states represented here as well last year. The big one that we had was in 2024. This race was actually voted the #1 race in the world by our athletes. So that net promoter score that I showed earlier, that's what we use to rank every event. And we were #1 globally in 2024. So this was kind of our award. This was a big one for us, and it's kind of a big deal on our end, and I think it's a big deal because it showcases that people loved coming to the city of Geneva. That was a big piece of this. And in every other year, in 21, 22, and 24, we've actually been voted the best bike course as well. Bike course, I'll show you the maps in a second, all take place in Seneca County, between Cayuga Lake and Seneca Lake, but still, this is the hub. Lakefront Park is the hub of it all. So kind of a big deal on our end from the Ironman standpoint here. Talking specifically courses, I just wanted to show, this is our 1.2 mile swim that we start at Lakefront Park and finish using the boat ramp on that Sunday. 1.2 miles, it's actually at this angle. I think this is why we were not voted higher last year. Obviously, we all know we're on the north end of the lake. We had a good south wind last year and made that a little turbulent, and so surveys tend to hurt us for bad weather, even though we have no control over it. I think some athletes think we do, but we don't. We shape it actually in this route because we take into account the sun angle. As people are looking at buoys, we don't want them staring at the sun as they're trying to figure out where they go. And this is a big point for us for our volunteers. We usually have somewhere between 30 to 50 kayakers out on the water. Plus we use border city, Seneca County Sheriffs, New York State Police, and I'm blanking, New York State Parks. I'm trying to think who else is on our water, as well as official agencies to help us support. Here's our 56-mile bike course. As you can see, we kind of route all through Seneca County, between the town of Fayette, Romulus, Ovid. I think we barely touch on Lodi at that point, Waterloo, and come through that way. But we get to go down both shores. And I think that's a real highlight for our athletes, is being able to spend, this is 56 miles. I believe it's probably about 20 to 25 of it, they're on a shore of a lake somewhere, right? And then, let's be honest too, all the vineyards and the wineries and the grape fields is kind of a nice view as well. And then our 13.1 mile run, it's actually a 2-loop run course. I'm a big believer of giving our spectators the chance to see their athletes. I like to create that. If you saw the pictures, if you come down to Lakefront, you can see all those people. You can see, especially we have what we call a tri-club village, where a lot of our clubs join and gather and create a nice big atmosphere. So we go down, out and back in the state park. And I realized on my walk in here this evening that I misspelled Hobart Smith Williams. I had that backwards. So it's supposed to be HWS, obviously. But we come up through the campus and run through Kings Lane back and do that twice for our 13.1 mile run. Our venue, this is how we set up at Lakeside Park, or Lakefront Park, sorry. Because we are always right after 4th of July weekend. We were 4th of July weekend for a long time. Big to do at Lakefront. Everyone needs to park the boats, and that's a massive boat parking area, and everyone loves to use that ramp. We actually flipped about 3 years ago to using the further east end of the park because we start setting up the Tuesday before. And so we want to allow the residents of this area as much access as possible to the park and not try to impede them in our setup. So this is our setup, and you can see the finish line there on the north side, closer to 5 and 20. We have a large merchandise tent, our registration, which turns into our athlete food. And then this grass area, also not as well designated, but is where we have our vendors, right? And one of my big pushes this year is actually to get a lot more local vendors involved. I'm talking to local businesses. I want to work a lot more with BID and try to get more people involved locally to support, or not support this, but to have our athletes. I feel like our athletes are worried how far downtown is, and I say far because even though it's only 2 blocks, they have to cross 5 and 20, and I think that scares a lot of them. And so if I can try to bring them in and try to promote downtown a little bit more and try to get people into downtown a little bit more through our village, would help a lot. Not that I'm saying that we don't have a lot of athletes there, but I think we could just added visibility. Here's our rough schedule for the weekend. Again, we start setting up on Tuesday. If you ever drive by, you can see the big tents going up on Tuesday. We start on Friday with our athletes start to roll into town. We have registration opens. We do our meetings, our safety briefings for all of our athletes at that point. And then Saturday, we actually have just added back in last year a kids race. So we have a little kids, basically ages 2 to 17, can do a run. Everyone has to drop off their bikes. So their bikes all have to be at that scene on the spot some point at Saturday. Our village is open, and then more safety meetings. And then we kick off the race. Our parking lots open officially at 4:30 at Seneca Lake State Park. Everyone walks down, and the race officially starts at 6 a.m. And I think we usually start awards around 4:30 in the afternoon. Overall, just some other notes of hosting. As I said, we usually get about 2,000 athletes. My guess is they usually bring somewhere between 2 to 3 people on average per person. So we're talking 5,000 to 7,000 people in total coming to the area just on Sunday, right? And I know for many who don't know what Ironman is, or even might know what Ironman is, it's a traffic nightmare, right? And I fully understand that. I have traffic on 5 and 20 clogged up at 5 a.m. all through the city, and then all the way out to the Lowe's parking lot on the other end. Fully understand. But it is nice to have those athletes in town. Again, if we can get those spectators, because their family's out riding for 56 miles, they're on their bike for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. What else are they going to do? Let's get them to walk downtown, right? Again, they have a chance to earn a spot for this year Nice, France World Championship. We have the $15,000 that we donate for nonprofits, and then my favorite part is we get to showcase Geneva on a world stage. That's my favorite part, right? People in Australia. I mean, again, Uzbekistan is coming to Geneva, New York, and that's my favorite piece, is seeing where people come from and how we can showcase this city. And I want to partner with you guys. I want to partner with BID. I want to partner with everyone downtown as much as we can to kind of make that marriage and how we can promote. Because this isn't about us promoting Ironman. Again, I've been doing this for 16 years. I am much more on your side. I'd rather see this grow, and I'd rather see the businesses grow, and I'd rather see the downtown grow than see Ironman add more athletes, right? I want to see more of my athletes coming to you guys is a big piece of why I'm here and why I want to tell you who I am. So, if you guys have any questions?
Thanks for your patience.
Of course.
You do know about the tunnel, right?
What's that?
There's a tunnel into under 5 and 20.
Correct. We used to use that. Our issue was when we got up to South Main Street, it became too narrow and too dangerous with our athletes on the road.
I don't mean for your route, but for the ability to get
to get
across
over.
there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then I heard there's a mural started. Is that going to close the tunnel, or is that no?
I don't think so on that tunnel. Nope, it's a
Okay.
different. It's a different tunnel.
Different
mural.
tunnel. Sorry. Okay.
Yep.
All I'd say is I think this is a phenomenal event.
Thank you.
The way it's managed, run, and what it does for Geneva, downtown, our image, I think is beyond measure, and certainly the accolades you're showing accelerate that significantly. And I think if more people understood that, and hopefully this amplifies to some who may hopefully still be tuning in, the importance of that. I certainly look forward to meeting you and in person. I think the next couple of weeks, I think we're trying to get a date to talk about this more. But I think certainly on behalf of this council, the city, anything we can try to do within what we're able to do to help you not only maintain this, but to grow it and to help it enhance and increase in stature, we're certainly willing to do and look forward to talking to you about it. So thank you very much.
Thank
And-
you.
and to everyone else.
If anybody has any suggestions on how I can do a better job, how I can be more involved, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm willing to take it. I'm willing to show up. I forgot who I was talking to this morning, but I was like, again, adding to our expo. I live on the east side of Syracuse. It's an hour and 10 minutes door to door. I was a frequent customer of Jim Hogan's when he still owned Geneva Bike. I was in his shop almost monthly, so I know the exact minutes it takes me to get from my house to downtown here. But I'm going to come out to the farmers market, even just there, and see who wants to come and be part of our village. Start knocking on restaurant doors, because I heard what a success Winterfest was, and we want to do something like that with Ironman as well. Have our athletes eat downtown, right? The short rentals. I understand everyone's like, all the Airbnbs are booked up. Well, still, come downtown. Let's eat downtown. Let's not make dinner at home, for sure. So thank you guys so much.
And thank you. All right. So now we go into unfinished business. We have a couple of resolutions to consider. The first is amending the memorial bench program. So I turn it over to Councilor Lavin.
This is just quick. We talked about it last time. We've had neighbors in First Ward anyway, and others coming to the city asking how they can do this. We hadn't really made it allotment since they started that program to increase the number of benches. I think there was, from what I can tell, the manager dug out that when they first started it, they were afraid of having too many benches, so they just limited it. But the demand is there. The other part is that the maintenance of the benches, now that they're getting older, there's no money really set aside. So this program would allow the staff at its discretion, where they think appropriate, to add 10 more benches, but charge both the cost of the bench and then a fee that would be held to start maintaining the benches that are there already. It would also put a limit, like we did as a member of Geneva Community Projects, number of years. If you bought one of those Adirondack chairs in a memorial, after 10 years you could re-up again, but it wasn't forever. And it also, GCP took extra money from the cost of the chair at the beginning to create a fund for repairing and replacing as they got beat up. So this just really kind of mirrors what GCP is doing with the Adirondack chairs. And there's plenty of places along from the state park all the way over to the tunnel where there might be one bench and two actually would be more appropriate for use, spread out. So, but it would be up to the staff to decide where to put down the cement and to determine the price and the method for re-upping a family after 10 years. A family whose name is on the bench would have first right to extend it for the next 10 years afterwards at a price that the staff would determine at that time. 10 years, things go up in price, and they can determine that as well.
Just to clarify, Councilor Lavin, the new fee or the benches would be actually set at 2 times the standard bench fee?
That's the plan, is to take half the money that the family would put up and put it into the fund for maintenance. I don't know exactly how you would deal with the ones that are there already. I don't know if they were agreed forever, but you may need to live with that.
Yeah, so I will let the assistant city manager, she provided you guys the bench memo that went into the details on that as well as the fees.
Yeah, so there's not obviously any kind of formal documentation of the conversations that were conducted back in, I think it was 2009 when we started the program, but in anecdotal conversations, it is their understanding that they were intended to be there for a lifetime. However, just in the few folks I've spoke to, many are willing to contribute to maintaining and updating, some maybe even need replacement. So we can continue those conversations with those families on the ones that already exist.
I'm sorry, this was originally seconded by John.
Right.
I forgot.
Yeah, he's the co-sponsor.
Yeah, right.
So I think prior to going into additional discussion, we need a motion.
Yeah, I was so moved.
Moved by Councilor Lavin. Do we have a second?
Second.
By Councilor Brennan. Now we can continue the discussion. Councilor Kane.
Does that fee for the bench include the pad?
Yes.
I figured you'd put that in there, but I just wanted to make sure.
Councilor Gummo.
I want to return to your earlier point. I think I'm just confused about the language in the resolution that's setting the price at 2 times the standard bench dedication fee, but I don't understand what the standard bench dedication fee is.
Well,
So we had determined in the bench memo what we estimated the cost of the bench to be, and so it was Councilor Lavin's recommendation that it be double that fee.
Got it.
To put that money towards maintenance, et cetera.
And what is that amount?
It was a little over $4,000.
So this would be 8,000.
No. I'm sorry.
The $4,000, over $4,000 included the maintenance. Yes.
Maintenance.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like 2.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry.
Other discussion? Questions? Okay, would the clerk call the roll?
Councilor Brennan?
Aye.
Councilor Kane?
Aye.
Councilor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Councilor Gilat?
Aye.
Councilor Lavin?
Aye.
Councilor Gameau?
Aye.
Councilor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Mayor Cicery?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. The next resolution is regarding the sale of 38 Jackson Street. City Manager Hendricks.
Yes, so this is in regards to the public hearing that was held previously tonight. This would authorize myself to work with our attorney and comptroller and go ahead and move the sale of 38 Jackson Street to Habitat for Humanity, and that's where we're going with it.
All right, do I have a motion? Motion by Councilor Gelati, second by Councilor Grimaldi. Discussion. Councilor Petropoulos.
Yes, just for the record, I did have a constituent also interested in that property. She did get the paperwork in late, but I guess she got outbid. Was there a bidding process, or did we promise it to home?
No, nothing was promised to anyone. We talked about, we met with council at one point, and at that time, we only had the one offer. Chose to move forward with it. Between that time and the last meeting where we established the public hearing, we received the offer from the adjacent property owner. I shared that in an email with city council, and it would be up to the council at this moment to decide, okay, we want to stay with the offer with Habitat, or we want to look at other offers.
Adam, Habitat had the high offer?
They did, yes.
Okay.
Yes, and they were gonna build a house on the site rather than just
Right.
add it to their property Correct. So there'll be an extra single-family owner-occupied house there.
And it does go on the tax rolls.
It does, yes.
So there is also a representative from Habitat here, should you have any questions about it, who's patiently sat through this part of the meeting.
We've used you guys a lot for infill housing.
You do a good job.
When do you start building?
Assuming the purchase goes through tonight, Oh, will you go over to the?
Yes,
Sorry, yeah. And just for the record, introduce yourself, please.
I'm Garrett Jones, Advocacy and Impact Associate at Greater Rochester Habitat. So, assuming the purchase goes through tonight, we are tentatively expecting to begin construction around September, August timeframe. That's just the way it'll fit into our current build schedule with the other properties that we have ongoing, including Catherine Street, which is also in Geneva.
Very good, thank you.
Councilor Petropoulos?
I just want to say, even though I have to sympathize with my constituent, I'm glad the property is being sold.
Okay, thank you. Just one question with regard to the process, I think for the public. In terms of when we look at this property and we have it up for sale, do we have a formal appraisal process of the actual property itself prior to putting something up for sale?
So we don't go do we don't have an actual appraisal done. We base it off. We have a group that gets together internally, and the assessor's included in that. So what we do is we check, we verify with the assessor that, you know, what are we expecting here? Is it overvalued, undervalued, things like that. And then basically, you know, the properties are put on the website, open to the public to submit offers on. And once we receive those offers, internally that team gets back together, reviews it from a code standpoint. I'm involved with it, assessment, everything you can imagine. Taylor's involved with it, DPW. So we're all taking a look at it, then we bring that to city council. And if we feel like it's, and we share that in executive section if we feel like that's appropriate or not. But yeah, as far as an actual appraisal, we don't do that. We just kind of rely on our assessor.
I would say we do appraisal sometimes if we're going to do a very targeted campaign on a piece of property. The process Adam just described, which this property falls under, these individuals have come forward, seen our property list, and they submit to us, we'd like to purchase it. This is what we would offer on this parcel and for this use. And so it's a little different than traditional sales of that process, or property.
One last question for you. In terms of the other houses you've done in Geneva, generally speaking, in terms of when you're finished, when you're completed, how long does the average individual or the average family live in that household?
So I believe for the most part, everybody that we sold to in Geneva is still there. I think we primarily built, this was going back before so previously we had Monroe County, which was Flower City Habitat, Ontario County, and Wayne County, 3 different affiliates, and we merged in 2023. So the majority of our construction in Geneva was prior to that. So the data I'm not 100% sure on, but the majority of the homeowners, which are primarily on Hawkins Ave, I believe, are still living there. And that
Even
goes.
the first one on West.
Yes,
over
and on
there is
West
still there,
Ave as
too.
well, yes.
I mean,
And-
that had to be 20 years ago we built that one.
And they are required to live in the property for a certain period of time as dictated by the grant funding sources that are on the property, typically through the state. Then in addition to that, even beyond that repayment period that they have to be there for, they're typically there for, you know, in excess of 20 to 30 years.
I think that's the point, that when these houses are constructed, we actually get long-term community residents, which is a very important element for any community.
Of course.
And certainly appreciated here in Geneva, so thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments? All right, would the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Kame?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Nay.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Gladly, yay.
Counselor Gameau?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Mayor Cicery?
Aye.
Carried.
Thank you. Okay, so now we'll go on to, thank you very much. On to new business. So the first item for the new business is authorizing the approval of NICEAG Site Management Access License at 255 Exchange. City Attorney Howe.
Yes, so quickly, a part of the parcel on which the public safety building sits used to be part of a larger parcel on which there was a manufactured gas plant many years ago, and NICEAG has been working with DEC to clean up that property, environmentally clean up that property. They've done that. They're kind of at that final stage where they have to submit a final engineering report to the DEC. As part of that, DEC needs to get an environmental easement from the current property owners. So for us, it's that portion of the public safety building site. And NICEAG has obligations underneath their cleanup duties with the DEC to monitor the wells that are on the site, so on our property, and all the rest of the site too as well. So there's two documents here that we are authorizing, or we need to have authorized. One is an environmental easement to the DEC so that they can, if they need to, they can go onto the property to investigate it. And secondly, a site management access license agreement for NICEAG to basically do the same and fulfill their obligations under their consent order with the DEC.
All right. Can we get a motion?
I'll motion.
Motion by Councilor Gummo, seconded by Councilor Grimaldi.
Thank you.
Do we have any discussion?
I just have one question. The easement, is that just to allow them access on there, or do we actually have to set aside, like a driveway for them to come
No,
in?
there's no obligation by the city to do anything specific to honor that. It's basically giving them access to the site for the purpose of
Behind the
monitoring the
police
wells.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Petropoulos?
I'm just curious, so we're giving them obvious access. Let's say they come in, are they gonna be there and not tell us for how long, or, I mean.
There are notice requirements under the NICEAG and the NICEAG agreement and I think with the
Okay,
DEC.
and you wouldn't know off the top of your head, perhaps even how long they might be doing any particular, I mean, is it
I don't
hours,
know.
day? Okay, I didn't
No,
think so, but.
my guess is that it's gonna be fairly, quick. It's not going to be
Right.
setting up camp to do something. The wells are already there, and so they just need to check on them periodically.
Okay, that's not a big deal.
What's the length of this license?
I think it's until their obligations are fulfilled, whenever that might be under the consent order.
Thank you.
Councilor Gummo?
Would approving this easement come with any obligations if we were to modify the public safety building or that parcel in the future?
Well, there are some limitations for us. I don't think that based on my understanding of where those wells are and the need to monitor them, I don't think that any changes to the building or to the site would materially impact those. So we could not, for example, build over where the wells are. We
Okay.
couldn't use the property. We're limited to using the property for our current municipal uses. So we couldn't build, like I said, an extension over where the wells are. We couldn't, I think there's a few other things in the agreement, but basically, we couldn't put in, a housing unit or, things like that.
Any other questions, discussions? Do I have a motion? Motion by Councilor Petropoulos, seconded by Councilor Gelati. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Kame?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Gamo?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Mayor Cicery?
Aye.
Carried.
All right, moving to the next resolution, a seeker authorizing the issuance of serial bonds to finance various capital improvements. Controller Blauvers.
Thank you, Mayor. So in order to approve a bond resolution, we're also required to make a determination for seeker, which we all know is the State Environmental Quality Review Act. And in many cases, there's no action required, no review required, and that's the case for all 5 of the capital projects that are on the plan for 2026. So this is not approving borrowing for those projects. This is just determining that there's no review required to move to the next step. In the next resolution, we can discuss approving the borrowing.
Okay.
Good
Do you have
to
a
go.
motion? Counselor Kane, second. Counselor Petropoulos, questions, discussion? Okay, would the clerk call the roll?
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Kane?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Gameau?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Mayor Sissery?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next resolution authorizing the issuance of serial bonds to finance various capital improvements.
Thank you. So, as the mayor just mentioned, this is a resolution authorizing the issuance of bonds for public improvements. The payments would begin in 2027. It would add approximately $285,000 to the annual debt service. That annual debt service is expected to decrease by $567,000, so we would be retiring more debt than we would be adding. The 2026 capital plan is also included in the packet. It looks different from what was originally budgeted. We did remove several things, several projects from that plan that we were either not ready for yet or felt like we could push to a later year. So we went from around 15 million to now the 2026 capital plan is just over 5 million. And so tonight we're looking for a resolution approving the issuance of bonds to cover the cost of those projects.
All right, do I have a motion? Motion by Counselor Gelati, second. Counselor Lavin. Do you have a discussion? Counselor Petropoulos.
Yeah, controllable hours. Do you have any idea which projects were eliminated?
Yes.
Can you,
Yes.
anything in Ward 5 I should know about?
Well, I can go through a couple of them. So the big one, which was about $9 million, was Pulteney Street project. So we're currently working on a project on Pulteney Street, and it just didn't make sense to start this next phase until that part is wrapped up. And that was going to be split amongst general water and sewer, several $1 million in each fund. The fire truck, which was budgeted to be borrowed for $1.2 million, is now going to be $1 million in grant, $200,000 from fund balance, and the other one was a piece of equipment at the water plant that I can't pronounce or explain what it does, but I hear it's very technical. But we actually don't need that at the moment because of the prior upgrades we made in 2025 during those emergency times. So we're able to hold off there. And then the I'm getting to it. And then the recreation improvements, we had put in a match for that, but we were not successful in receiving a grant, and so we aren't putting those match funds in there. So that got us down. That took about $10 million off the total bond.
Good enough, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, comments? All right, will the clerk call the roll?
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Kane?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Gameau?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Mayor Sissery?
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right, the final resolution is the aid and incentives for municipalities. To describe this and what this is, at the conference, the New York Conference of Mayors, one of the things that had arisen, and it's a fact that we deal with here in the city of Geneva as all municipalities, is that the aid that comes from the state has remained flat for a significant number of years. And that, despite the increasing costs the city bears, means that it is an increasing burden on our taxpayers. This resolution joins actually several other municipalities. This was actually initiated by the mayor of Utica, who made a plea to fellow mayors throughout the state to join in sending this resolution or creating a resolution of such that really looked at calling upon the mayor as well as the state legislatures to look at not only looking at increasing or making permanent any temporary funding, which is what we have today and we've been granted for several years. And happy to say the mayor or the governor included a proposed another $100 million for municipalities across New York State is, however, temporary. And for us, what that means is, quite simply, that means we might not get it next year. And that would put us in even more of a precarious position. The governor made a rather impassioned speech about this as well, that municipalities need whatever aid that the states could give, especially considering how difficult it is for us to keep and upkeep with the cost of infrastructure, amongst other things. So this city, and I very proudly present this resolution to council for consideration, which not only advocates the permanence of this funding, but also indexing it to something like inflation so it increases each year and allows us more ability to offset really would be an increasing burden to the taxpayers of Geneva. So with this, I present this forward and would ask if there is a motion on the floor to accept.
I make a
Councilor
motion.
Gummo, seconded by Councilor Brennan. Any discussion?
This is just a letter of support for the program.
Correct. It's an advocacy for the program to make it permanent and to hopefully and ideally
Right.
increase it each year.
And put our name on with the
Correct.
rest of the players. Okay.
I thank you for making it a priority.
Absolutely. Any other questions, comments? Clerk, call the roll.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Kame?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Gamow?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Mayor Sissery?
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right, for the next, we'll do this via voice vote, the consideration of meeting minutes, February 4th, February 12th. We have a motion to accept. Councilor Petropoulos, second. Councilor Kame, any questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained, so carried. Next, board and commission appointments. We have several, so I'll turn it over to Councilor Gelati.
Can I do it all together?
Yes,
I'm
you
gonna
go
go
all
Yes,
together.
do it all as one.
Following residents have been recommended for appointment by City Council by the following boards: Zoning Board of Appeals, Joshua Frost and Windsor Wade. The Recreation Advisory Board is 4, Cheryl D'Amico, Danielle O'Brien, Devin Cecil, and Gregory Geiger, I'm sorry.
Jeffrey.
I still moved.
I second that.
So moved, so seconded by Councilor Lavin.
Oh, by-
Any discussion? He beat you by a hair.
Sorry. Well,
Any discussion?
Jeffrey,
I think we commented on this process earlier.
close.
All right, let's do this via voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? So carried. Motion for adjournment? Counselor Gummo, second. Counselor Petropoulos.
Nobody will watch.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? So moved. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.